Hello everyone, I am Remy Remsleep and welcome back to the Remie-Sphere. In our last episode, we talked to Tyler Banadega, who is an artist, musician, puppeteer, pretty much everything under the sun. Except for the sun. Tyler's not the sun. It would be a little hard to interview him from all the way up there, but anyway. Today, I have a very special guest, someone who has been around in the Mother community since the early Starman.net days. He has touched many people's lives through his artwork and through his translations, and has been involved in countless Mother projects over the years. When I think of artist and the Mother series, there's only one gentleman that comes to mind very frequently, and it's this man. So, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh wow, that was very kind of you. Well, anyway, I'm Kenisu3000, otherwise known as Kenneth Locke, and yeah, I've been in the Mother community for quite a while now. I'm known mainly for doing a fan comic that's starting to cover the first game in the series, and I also do some translation work. I'm also known for translating the Encyclopedia Mother, which is still kind of an ongoing translation for me, but for as thin as a book as it is, it's longer than you'd think it would be. But,
I've heard by passing that you were working on a project related to the Encyclopedia Mother. So yeah, that's cool. So Kenisu. So okay, so I just want to make a point. We talked about this earlier, but I just want to make a point to everyone who's watching. It's not Kenisu, guys. It's Kenisu, right? Is that right?
Okay. Yeah, well, that's how I pronounce it. Yeah, I just wanted to.
You don't understand like how many times I've like mispronounced people's names in the Mother community, like Nyasu Nekoben. I did the same thing with her, and of course Tyler Banadega. It's actually Banadega. I pronounce it Banadega. I'm just generally bad with names. A little tidbit for you at home. So Kenisu, I told you this already, and for anybody who's watching this and doesn't know how this works, I'll just go ahead and say it right now. I've made many community posts across many social media platforms with the help of Biozilla. Special thanks to him. He's been he's been a great help since the very beginning, especially with this trying to promote this particular situation. He's been helpful in like gathering questions and whatnot. So I asked the Mother community what kind of questions they would like to ask you, and we've gotten quite a few responses here. Not too many, which is pretty typical, but we've got just enough. And of course, I have my own questions because I'm a personal fan. So, anyway.
Hey.
All right, so let's start with like the most obvious one. I told Mr. Banadega this in the first episode, and since you're a Mother representative, words are hard. I think this question would be pretty appropriate. What's your favorite food, Kenisu?
Probably pizza, I guess.
What kind of pizza?
Also, I like mushrooms. I like pepperoni. I like cheese. Yeah, I don't branch out too far, but
yeah,
yeah,
you don't eat like vegetable pizza.
I come from the.
Yeah.
Not really, no.
Yeah, I don't like vegetable pizza that much. Like I typically like to keep the cheese and the vegetables apart from each other when I eat something. Anyway, I'm sorry. You were saying something and I cut you off disrespectfully. I didn't mean that. Go ahead.
Oh, no, you're good. I was searching around for some Ninja Turtles joke, but I couldn't find it.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
Because I come from the Ninja Turtles era with the pizza and all that.
Yeah. It's always so strange that like in like 90s movies and 80s like animated movies, they always draw pizza as like this slime is like, like it's so stretched out and stuff. Like, like the Goofy movie or something. That's something that comes to mind anyway. Yeah. It's, I don't know. I don't see like that stringy cheese.
I love a Goofy movie.
Yeah. Classic. Classic. I gotta watch it again. I haven't seen that movie since I was probably like 5. I don't know, but I genuinely love that.
Yeah, the more you watch it, the more you realize, oh, that was so brilliant. The writers doing that, and that was so subtle, and all these little different things that they did.
Right, and I mean, like if you think about it, it's like it's like every other kind of movie that Disney's done before, like with live action stuff. It's like the dad and the son bonding, but instead it's Goofy and his son Max. You know, it's animated and it's silly and it's fun.
You know, it's probably my favorite animated Disney movie too.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah.
Why do you say that?
Well, for one, the soundtrack really spoke to me with the Powerline songs and it's just a really fun soundtrack, and not only the songs but the score by and his name escapes me. No, Carter Burwell.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, he writes this theme for Goofy and Max, and you know they're bonding, and it's just this really heartwarming theme. And there's the scene where they're together in the car together, and they're talking about Goofy tells Max about Hi Dad soup, and Goofy's worried that he's losing his son, that Max is kind of pulling away from him.
Right. Yeah.
And then he tells Max this story about Hi Dad soup, and then Max is eating alphabet soup at the time, and it's a story about how Max, when he was little, he used to spell out words using the letters in the alphabet soup. And he'd say things like "Hi, Dad" and all that. And,
I think I think I know what scene you're talking about. I only remember like maybe a few scenes from that movie, and that's one of them. The other scene I remember is actually how I learned like my lefts and my rights. Was when they were driving and on the highway. And then it's like, which way do I go? Right. So I don't remember exactly how it went, but that just comes to show that I need to get back in the goof, but
not the goof train.
Exactly. I got to hop back on that goof train.
But basically that Hi Dad soup scene is really amazing, because you get this scene, it ends, and sorry for the spoiler for anybody who hasn't seen it, but it ends with Max, because Goofy's been worried that Max has been pulling away from him, and it's looking like he is. And then the scene ends with they're getting ready to just fall asleep. They're going to sleep in the car, but Max taps Goofy on the shoulder, his dad on the shoulder, hands him the cup with the soup in it, and it says "Hi Dad," and the musical score just swells into this melody that Carter Burwell wrote for the movie, and it's just beautiful.
Dang, I gotta watch it now. you're really making it sound enticing. So it's
well, I'm a big film score nut, so
like James Horner, you know him, right?
Yeah.
He did the score for Land Before Time. I don't know why I remember his name, but like I love the music in that movie. It was a movie that really right. Yeah. It was a movie that resonated with me as a child, because kids love dinosaurs, and but the music in that film, it just feels like something that, wouldn't normally exist in like a kid's film, because it's just so emotional and like.
Oh, it definitely is.
That's just.
I remember watching it when it first came out when I was a kid, and it was like nothing I'd ever seen or, heard with the music and all that.
Right. But that's just a lot of Don Bluth movies. He's he has this.
Oh yeah.
He has this kind of. There's like a hint of seriousness in a lot of his films, and like. And
there's a hint of seriousness and a whole lot of scary.
And a whole lot of Oh yeah. Don't forget that, the nightmare fuel on occasion. Didn't he direct? I'm sorry. I don't. Pardon me for my ignorance, but didn't he like direct like the Brave Little Toaster? Like I would add that to like the nightmare fuel train, because like the clown scene.
I'm pretty sure Bluth had nothing to do with Brave Little Toaster. I think that was who was the Toy Story Pixar guy?
John Lasseter.
John Lasseter. I can't remember if Lasseter directed it or what, but he had a hand in it.
Really?
And yeah, Brave Little Toaster is another big classic for me.
Dang, I didn't even know that. That's interesting. Wow. So All right, thank you. Yeah, it was a nice little talk there about, Disney films and stuff. We'll get into that more later, but we have some questions here.
Yeah.
So let's
Yeah,
no, you're totally fine. Like, a part it's this, part of the conversation that, I most enjoy about doing like the Remie-Sphere is, just like talking and getting to know people and, questions. Yeah, it's a part of it, because it's like half interview, half just like, oh, we're talking about like, I don't know, shoes or something like, oh, those are cool shoes, right, Kenisu? And you're like, yeah, I like those shoes a lot,
Yeah.
It's just like, it's a fun little thing. But anyway, okay, so let's see here. I guess we'll start with some Biozilla questions. Not only did he help promote these community posts, but also he's, very good at asking all the right questions, So Biozilla asks, sorry, what you were going to say something or?
No, you go ahead.
Okay. I was going to say, Biozilla said, is the first Mother still your favorite of the trilogy? And if so, why?
Oh, always and forever. I love this game. It describing why, that's the hard part. It has this, I like the other two games. I love Earthbound, and I definitely enjoy Mother 3.
Mm-hmm.
But Mother 1 has this something to it, and I've never really been able to put my finger on it.
Man, it's almost like it's almost like you can read my mind, because like that's exactly what I say about Mother. It's like it's got this magic to it, but you can't really say where it's coming from.
Yeah, I can try and describe it. It's sort of that secret thing that you discover, which Earthbound has that. Had that before it became a popular thing, but it's this, it kind of has this feel like it comes from this thing that you've dug up from the distant past, but not too distant, or like we're probably going to get into this later on, but I'm also a Super Sentai fan, which is the Japanese
I've heard of that.
Rangers.
Yeah.
And
so present like that. I remember the jingle. I don't remember the lyrics.
Well, each series has its own theme song, but because they change, the show changes wholesale pretty much every year. But,
okay, that's cool.
But
go ahead. You can go ahead. Keep. Do you? Is there a reason why you like Super Sentai? Am I saying it right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, Super Sentai. It's getting into Mother. It kind of I didn't know. I was a Power Rangers fan when I was a teenager. A closet Power Rangers fan because I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
But there was this thing about it where when I discovered that it came from a Japanese series, came from a Japanese show, and I started watching Power Rangers from that point on, and I started noticing, the footage, the quality kind of changes. Oh, this footage is from the Japanese side of things. Oh, I get it. It's from a completely different show, and they kind of splice it together into this thing. And you notice with the footage that it has a much older, rainier look to it. The Japanese footage does. And
even in like
it has this,
even in like the newer episodes that are coming out, like recent ones, they have that kind of grainy.
I don't think in the newer stuff. I actually haven't been following it past what's called the Zordon era.
Okay.
Which is the latest Power Rangers thing that I've watched all the way through is Lost Galaxy, and that was way back when, and that was like 1999. But yeah, and so from what I've seen of the newer stuff, the newer material, they have upgraded the cameras, I guess, if upgrade is the right word. But I want to say that the camera, the footage, it looks older. You'd have all this stuff from that was shot in America for Power Rangers, and that was in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And they use on the American side, they'd be using the cameras that you'd usually see that kind of quality of footage in 90s shows.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then, that's just like the filmography of the time is, that's just like the quality. And there are a lot of people, actually, I've interacted with a lot of people who can't watch like shows from the 90s and 80s because of like the quality. I'm indifferent though. I like some of my favorite like cartoons and anime, you know, they come from that period, like the early to mid 90s and stuff. Do you watch anime, Kenisu?
Yeah, I don't watch a wide range of anime. There's basically like a handful that I could really say that I'm a lifelong fan of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but my favorites are Dragon Ball and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood, and that was just with Full Metal Alchemist. It had the two different anime. The one that came out in 2003, which kind of followed the manga at first, and then once it got ahead of the manga, they just started doing their own thing. And
right, I've seen that one.
Mm-hmm. And then that was the 2003 anime, and then in 2010 they came out with the second anime, which does follow the manga. And in the US, they put a little subtitle on it, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood. And that's the one that I really like. And
because it's more based on the manga itself, right?
Oh yeah. And you look at, you read the manga and you're just like, okay, Hiromu Arakawa, she was just brilliant with how she knew what she was doing right from the get-go. And she places all these little nuances here and there that you don't realize is foreshadowing. For stuff later on, and there's just so many. It's so thematic and it's amazing.
Yeah. I've heard nothing but good things about Full Metal Alchemist. It's like I hear that it's like some of people's like top 3. Yeah. So, and even I watched the original one many years ago. I do need to watch Brotherhood though. That I'm kind of lacking behind on. And I like Dragon Ball too. I did in high school. I was big into Dragon Ball, like the original, and then I watched Z. Yeah. And it was a fun little thing. I don't know, like when it comes to the pacing though, that's like the big problem with me. And like, that's and that's a problem with like a lot of the big like shonen anime is like the pacing is so drawn out. But that they do that on purpose though.
Yeah. Well, back in the day, Dragon Ball used to have this little nickname. It was called Drag On Ball because it would just drag on and on.
Oh, really? Don't know if I've heard of that one. That's a new one. But yeah, it makes sense.
It's pretty funny. But yeah, I personally I prefer the original Dragon Ball to Z.
Really?
But yeah. Oh, well, I got into the series through Z and everything, but I like Dragon Ball because it has this adventure aspect. In addition
also,
to the fighting and the battles.
Right. And also like the pacing wasn't so wasn't so like drawn out like in Dragon Ball Z. The original kinda had that a little bit, if like from my recollection. I could be wrong, but like I remember there was some good with. Yeah.
It was an adventure series, and so with Z, the focus is on battles, and so what can you do but draw out the battle?
Right. Yeah.
And maybe have a cutaway to some character doing something, and then. But with Dragon Ball, the filler episodes are, I would say, on the whole, better than the filler episodes in Z.
Really?
There's this amazing filler episode in the original Dragon Ball. Goku goes to Demon Land, or some. Yeah, I remember it just starts out with this amazing cold opening before the title comes up on screen. And it's not any of the main characters. It just shows this little girl, this princess, and it's the middle of the night. It's this really creepy scene that's been set up, and she wakes up. It's been a while since I've seen this, so
I concur.
A little, but yeah, you've seen it.
I have, like, I watched all of the original Dragon Ball, like, at some point in my life. I don't exactly remember, but I did.
But but in this one, this young princess wakes up, and she's nervous about something. She can't tell what exactly, and she's kind of wandering around her room, and it's all dark and everything. And then there are all these weird atmospheric noises that come in to the sound design, and then all of a sudden these footsteps happen. She sees these footsteps on her floor in her room, but nobody's there making the footsteps. And then she looks inside the mirror, and there's like this weird, creepy doppelganger of herself in the mirror, and it turns around and moves by itself and grabs her, and then she shrieks, and then you get the title. It is just, I
Wow.
love that scene.
That sounds very not Dragon Ball, and you know that's not
Yeah.
saying that's a bad thing by any means. It can be like
Oh yeah.
you know, it can be I love it when series like do things that are outside of like the usual like pattern of writing that they have.
Yeah, in the first Ninja Turtles movie, I remember watching that, and when with that first Ninja Turtles, it fades in, and you get this scene of New York, and at first it feels different because
Mm-hmm.
it's live action and you're used to watching the cartoon and all that, but it just, that first scene just feels so different because and you're like, am I watching a Ninja Turtles movie? I could be. This is really cool, but I'm not sure if I'm watching a Ninja Turtles movie. And then it goes on, and you start to realize, oh yeah, this is a Ninja Turtles movie. And then it's basically April reporting on all the crimes that have been going on in New York City.
Hmm.
And you don't really know that it's April until later on, but
Mm-hmm.
a couple minutes in.
Okay. Yeah.
But
You know, typical like you know, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle shenanigans, but it's like live action.
yeah, it's live action, and it had this really gritty feel to it.
Mm-hmm. I remember I watched one of those movies. I can't remember which one. Didn't it have like 4 movies, the live action TMNT?
There were 3 live action movies in the 90s, and they came out with a 4th one, which was CG, and that was in
Yeah.
2007.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
I remember the third one. It was like you know, forgive me if I'm wrong here, but it was like a samurai. It was like very
the third one
samurai
was the one-
centric.
Yeah, the third one was when they go to feudal Japan. They travel back in time
Right. Oh yeah, yeah. Now I remember.
with the scepter and everything.
Right. Yeah, because I knew someone who's like, you know, we were playing Mario Party, and like he was like, he always plays as Yoshi, and I'm like, why do you like Yoshi? And he's like, because that was the kid's name in the TMNT movie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that really the only reason? He's like, yeah, I guess. And it also kind of looks like Raphael or something. So yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting
That's also
origin.
where I learned the word kappa.
Kappa. Oh yeah, Kappa. That's like that's isn't that like a ancient Japanese like creature from like folklore?
It's a yokai.
Gotcha.
But,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, cool.
Boy,
Yeah.
I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, what I was trying to say though, like going way back with Super Sentai
Mhm.
and the camera quality, I would notice with Power Rangers, I had no way at the time to watch the original Japanese show, so I would just have to rely on what footage I saw in Power Rangers and be able to guess what was going on, what was the plot line of the Japanese episode, and you watch these things, and when the footage changes over to the Japanese footage, you notice that it has that kind of this older, grainier look, but the camera quality, I wouldn't say the camera quality drops.
Mhm.
It actually improves a bit. I would say the camera quality actually feels more cinematic than because with Power Rangers it felt like a kind of a TV quality camera, and then with the Super Sentai, with that footage, it looks more cinematic to me, like a theatrical movie.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and
so what you're trying to say is like the camera quality in Power Rangers kind of like shifts a lot, right? I'm trying to understand here.
With the classic stuff from the 90s, yeah.
Mhm.
I again, I don't know what it's like nowadays. I think it.
I can't say
it's more
either. I'm not
difficult
too big into Power Rangers.
But yeah, going back to that, it's sort of like that same feeling Mother One is to me, is that discovery of, oh, this footage that is from some show that I can't watch, but I want to watch really, really badly, and it's just, man, I can't really describe it properly. It has this distant, but not too distant quality to it. Something you feel like you can grab hold of, but you can't quite. Something from the past, something like from your childhood that
Oh, so nostalgia?
well, well, nostalgia, yeah, there's that. But it was really weird because when I very first played Other One, or at least after I got finished playing it and it started to sink its hooks into me, I started to gain this weird feeling about it that was just it's
Hmm.
it like I had played it in my childhood and somehow forgotten about it and had my memories erased of it or something like that. But it was just this really
Oh,
weird feeling.
interesting.
And again, it's really really hard to describe.
Yeah, I
But
mean, I personally can't like, because I watched Power Rangers when I was like a lot younger, but I've
Mhm,
never been too big into it. But
mhm.
like it's just interesting to hear because I've never heard anybody like compare compare Mother to Power Rangers. That's a new one.
Oh
Not saying
well,
that that's weird or bad or anything. It's
and
just
now you've met
interesting.
yeah, and now you've met me. So
Well, not saying that that's
so get ready
again.
for some weird stuff.
Well, not saying that that's bad. It's just like interesting because
Yeah,
like they're it because like
yeah.
they have such different like presentations. Because it's like Mother is about like these kids going on an adventure, and then Power Rangers
Mhm.
is like these guys and they got suits and they got these powers and stuff, or like correct me if I'm wrong, they can do like make robot stuff happen, I guess, or like turn into like a
Oh yeah.
robot. Cool.
Sometimes they turn into a robot. Usually they pilot the robot.
Right, yeah, that's what I meant.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
they don't turn into the robot.
Oh yeah. Sometimes
Alrighty.
they do, but
Well, I would have no idea. In any case.
that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. So the next question that Biozilla says is, what
Mhm.
is it like being a fan of the game in the heyday of Starman.net?
So like a fan of Mother One specifically, I get
Yeah,
um
I suppose so.
because that was interesting. That was you'd go in. There was kind of a small I mean, Earthbound was, of course, a small fan community at
Hmm.
the time. Ugh.
Right.
Sorry, I had to burp. I don't know if you heard that.
No, it's okay. I do that all the time on while I'm recording. I do like let's plays and stuff on my channel and stuff, and it just happens. So it's just like I just embrace it. It's a human thing. So whatever. In any case,
So yeah, like yeah, on Starman.net with the first game, it had the forum had this little subsection for Mother One, and I'd usually hang around there as one might expect, and it was a very small community of us. Earthbound, like I was saying, it was already a small fan community, but Mother One was even more niche, and
mhm.
you'd have like a small group of us just in the Mother One subsection of the forum, just having fun with our little theories about what was what, and that's another thing that I love about the first game is that it leaves so much to the imagination. It gives you just enough information and lets you run with it.
I agree with that.
Like
Yeah, like
head cannons galore.
right. And
Yeah.
that's what I find interesting about it too, because it's like it's like why do I need to find a melody in a singing cactus? Why do I need to go to a monkey
Hmm.
to hear a melody? So there's like and also like why do these entities like know like these melodies? And Etoy left a lot up for interpretation. And also a lot of it
Hmm.
too was just because of the limitations of the NES. It couldn't explain like too many things because there was only so much they could work with at the time.
Yeah, and for me, that really adds to that feeling I was trying and failing to describe earlier. But it brings back a lot of memories of because I was a kid in the '80s and '90s, and these are it felt like my own memories.
Hmm.
But with Mother One and the theories and a little the way that it just. Sorry, I'm trying to gather my thoughts here.
Yeah, no problem. Take your time, dude.
Yeah, we were talking about theories, and then it was the limitations of the NES,
Hmm.
and there was just something about the way the sprites and the music and everything. It just on the NES when you try to reproduce that in it with newer technology, I don't know if it. I think it kind of loses a bit of that quality. And
Mm-hmm.
no disrespect to Mother Encore or anything like that, but
Mm-hmm. There are definitely going to be like fans that, I already know like a few people that are a little upset over like very minor details that have been changed in like Mother Encore and stuff. But
well, what I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter how faithful you are with a remake. If it's done with newer technology, you kind of lose that weird quality that the NES had to reproduce a nostalgic 80s feel, if that's the right way of describing it. I don't know.
yeah, I think I get what you mean, because it's like it has to be like because like you said, its limitations are its charm, because some people find that like more charming than like playing like Earthbound or Mother 3. But I'd argue that, each Mother game has their own like
Oh yeah,
uniqueness to them, and each Mother game has their own like focus on like what do we want this game to be known for exactly. And so
absolutely. It's
okay,
yeah,
so
each game had. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
no, go ahead. We're
I was just gonna say each game has its own individual personality that really grabs you.
it's
So you were gonna say?
I was gonna move on to a question here, another question from Biozilla. But yeah, thank you so much for giving us your thoughts on the game. You have like a interesting philosophy on that, and I agree. Because like I grew up with CRT TV. In my room.
Yeah.
And so like I used to watch cartoons on there all the time, and like the Wiggles and stuff. The fruit salad song I remember, jumping on my bed to, and just like those little things. It's just like it can resonate with you, and you can go back and remember those things. It's kind of half nostalgia, kind of half like has its own charm to it. Anyway, okay, so Biozilla asks, what made you want to learn Japanese?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I already just got into how I was a Power Rangers fan and as a teenager when I was in high school. And I was a closet fan. I had really nobody to talk to about it because, I was quote unquote too old to be a Power Rangers fan.
Oh, that's not fair.
Yeah, I kind of tried to talk about it a couple of days and I wound up regretting it.
Oh no. What happened?
Yeah, a bunch of kids in my high school just kind of treated me like the butt of a joke for about a week or so. But
oh, I'm sorry.
Nah, it's okay. This is way back in the day, so it's all water under the bridge, and you weren't one of those kids, so.
Well, I was gonna say, it just came it just came to my mind. No, you're good. We have like audio delays, and that's not uncommon with, calling over Discord or whatever. It's totally fine. And so sometimes, I may like accidentally interrupt you or something, and that's to kind of be expected. But I was gonna say I went to Comic-Con once, and I think one of the actors, one of the Power Rangers were there signing autographs, and you wouldn't believe like the line. There was so many people there. It was insane, and they're all like dressed up in their own like Power Rangers or Super Sentai outfits and stuff. And I was just like, wow, like there really must be a massive fan base for this that I'm not realizing.
Yeah. I don't go to these things but from what I understand, Power Rangers has its own version of Comic-Con where I think it's called Power Morphicon or something like that. But basically it's just Comic-Con for Power Rangers fans. And
like they'll have like little things like that for games and stuff, like I don't know if Earthbound does it. I don't know if they have like a MotherCon or anything like that, but I do know though. I do know what you're talking about. They do. There are like fan bases that have like Comic Cons for like Genshin Impact or whatever, or like Dark Souls, or just naming stuff like off the top of my head. But it was like really like. It was almost kind of shocking because like you never know that these fan bases exist if you didn't like just happen to run into like a fan or anything. Like it's, and in that way it's kind of like the Mother series. because the Mother fan base is also like pretty underground, and you know there are a lot of people out there who are like, you know, super big fans of like the big, you know, Nintendo games like Legend of Zelda and Mario and stuff, but you know there's also like this underground group, you know, we're just like chilling in a sewer and talking about the Mother series while everybody above ground's like, you know, but you know, I think, but at the same time, it's there are a lot of like Mother inspired games that are coming out now, and like, you know, from indie developers that are really shining a light on the Mother series, and like you can kind of trace everything back to the Mother series, because there's a lot of Mother like games coming out, a lot of Mother inspired games, not necessarily Mother like, but they have some Mother elements to them, and et cetera, et cetera.
Oh,
you know?
Yeah, there's tons of Mother inspiration going on, and
it's kind of cool. It's like, it's almost mainstream, but not exactly, you know? Wait, did you answer did you get to what made you want to learn Japanese?
Oh, no. That's actually a long story, but
okay.
But yeah, we got sidetracked again.
Oh, no problem. I mean, but, you know, that's a fun, you know, if we get sidetracked, it happens, but yeah, I'm here for long stories. Throw it at me.
Yeah, being a teenager and a Power Rangers fan, I remember I had nobody to talk to about the show or what I loved. This was in the middle of Power Rangers in Space when it was first airing on TV. And to this day, Power Rangers in Space is my favorite season. Probably because of the nostalgia, but it did things that the previous series had not done. It was just amazing watching that from day to day, going, oh boy, this is just, I've never seen this show do this before. Like the writers are actually kind of taking their job seriously now.
Like waiting for the next episode to come out next week, and you're like, oh boy, can't wait to see what happens next, you know, that type of excitement.
Well, the best thing about that is that, as I recall, it was like a new episode every day, every other day.
Oh, wow, geez.
So that's kind of how the seasons worked at the time. They'd have like a bunch of episodes, like maybe a week's worth of episodes, if I'm remembering right, and then there'd be maybe a break, and then maybe some more like but yeah, I'm getting sidetracked again, sorry.
Yeah, no problem, man, no problem.
So yeah, I was, you know, having nobody to talk to about it, and then all of a sudden, like, I get home internet, and you know, good old dial-up, and when I go online, it was a while before I discovered forums. It would be quite a while before I discovered, you know, forums and message boards and stuff like that, where you can actually have conversations with people about your favorite show and whatnot. But I'd go on these fan sites for Power Rangers, and that's when I first discovered about Super Sentai. And
is that also how you discovered Starman.net?
Not yet. Like,
okay.
This was in 1998, and I think that was like when I think Reban, I think it was 98 when Reban first started Starman.net. I think it was Earthbound.net back then, but yeah, I wasn't a Mother fan yet. I was going through these sites and learning all this stuff about Super Sentai, and they'd have the titles of these shows that, you know, because the show changes every year, which is why the Power Rangers, they change costumes and Zords every year, giant robots, and each show had kind of a different name. It was blank Sentai blank Ranger or Man. And Sentai, by the way, Sentai means squadron.
Okay.
I remember back in the day, all these websites that I was telling you about, they would translate Sentai as task force, which I kind of like squadron better.
I think Squadron sounds cooler,
yeah,
but Task Force has its own charm to it too. But Task Force feels a little bit more like not super though, you know. Squadron is like it's like really cool, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, proceed.
So yeah, I noticed that these shows would have names that kind of went along this naming scheme. You've got Chojin Sentai Jetman, and that was the series that came just before the Power Rangers came out, because Super Sentai had been going on in Japan since 1975, so almost 20 years before Power Rangers came out in the U.S. But and that first season of Power Rangers, it was just like the first or the Super Sentai that had aired in Japan just the year before, Ranger, and that one, yeah. But basically, I was in the middle of Power Rangers in Space, and I found out through these sites that it was based on a show called Denji Sentai Mega Ranger. And I'm looking through all these plot lines and everything. I'm man, I really want to watch this show. But I had no access to Japanese TV. I didn't know anything about fan subs or imports or anything like that. So.
Right, that was fairly new at the time. It was fairly hard to watch anime or watch shows imported from Japan. They weren't as popular at the time, and so I could see that being kind of a niche thing at the time. Japanese entertainment in America.
But I really wanted to watch these shows, but I noticed in the titles they would translate the titles of the shows, and one of the the very first Super Sentai from 1975, it was called Himitsu Sentai Go Ranger, and that was they put a translation underneath it and said this means secret squad or secret task force 5 Ranger, because there were 5 of them. And so I start to notice little different things, and I'm realizing, well, Ranger and Man, sometimes you'd have Jetman. It would sometimes end in Man or Ranger, and those were English words. And I'm going, huh. And the more I learn about, I look at episode lists, episode summaries of the Japanese shows, and they'd have these titles, and there would be a lot of English in the titles, and I'd go, that's interesting. I didn't know that the Japanese used so much English in their language. And so fast forward a little bit, just like a few months, I get a copy of Super Mario RPG.
All right.
So this is going to become pretty relevant to recent game releases, but I get a copy of Super Mario RPG, and I'm sure you can imagine how much I loved the Axum Rangers sequence. But I start going on websites for that game, or fan-made websites, and there was this one that I went to called Super Mario RPGers Paradise, and there was a frequently asked questions page on there, and I remember going on that, and I just absolutely adored the music from this game, as does anybody who has played it.
I agree. I played the original. I never beat it, but I got close. The music is great in that game. I am on board with that.
And so I'm just thinking, okay, I want this music, but I don't have the technology know-how to get the music off the game, other than maybe to hold a tape recorder up to the TV screen while I'm in a boss battle or something. I mean, that was the limits of my technology know-how, and even then you'd still have to deal with some sound effects and some cutscenes and whatnot, and so you couldn't get the music completely isolated. And so I'm like, man, this is just kind of a bummer. And I'm on this website, Mario RPGers Paradise, and I'm on the frequently asked questions, and it says one of the questions was there ever a soundtrack CD released of this game? And the guy who ran the site said, yes, there was, but only in Japan. And so I'm like, well, there we go again.
Oh man,
Japan that I can't get.
Yeah, but I can understand the frustration.
It has a happy ending.
Okay.
So I discover this other website called Soundtrack Central. I don't know if this site still exists, but basically it was a site, and we're still in like 1999 here.
Here, I'm trying to look at it.
There.
What is it, Soundtrack Central?
I think it's Soundtrack Central. It was either .net or .com. I can't remember which one, but yeah, it basically went over a bunch of reviews of Japanese video game CD releases or music releases, and I found there was a review for the Super Mario RPG original sound version, as the soundtrack was called.
Oh.
And it was a 2-disc set. And I'm looking at this review, and this guy, I can't remember. It would have been either Adam Page or Adam Korn, or one of them did a review. There were 2 Adams that were doing reviews of those games, or of those soundtracks. And but yeah, he did a review, and I don't think he had even played the game. He just had this CD, and he was reviewing it, but and of course he gave it good marks, but I'm looking, and there was a track list off to the side, and I'm looking at the track list, and it's all in English, and I'm going, well, it's from Japan, but this track list is all in English. I mean, what does this guy do, translate it from Japanese to English? Yeah, right. Yeah. And
all right.
And to this day, before the remake came out with its sound player built into the game itself, because with the sound player with the remake, it has translated track titles.
Mm-hmm.
And these track titles, they come from the CD set. And, I can tell by the translations and everything, but some of the track titles that everybody had referred to these tracks by all these years, I'm pretty sure the track list, it comes from the translation that was on Soundtrack Central, I'm pretty sure. But you'd have stuff like Fight Against an Armed Boss, which was, I think, if I recall, my favorite track from the game at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a fight against a Smith gang member, and the boom, 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 boom.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I know what you mean.
You gotta
yeah.
love that one.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, my personal favorite, one of my personal favorites is is when Mario and Mallow go back to the Mushroom Kingdom, and then the Shy Guys on the pogo sticks like take over. Boom,
yeah,
boom, yeah, that one.
Yeah, it's the same leitmotif too. Yoko Shimomura, she composed this melody for the Smithy gang, and you can actually kind of hear a little hint of it at the very beginning of the first stage Smithy battle too. And then the sledge comes down and smacks everybody, and but with Fight Against an Armed Boss, that one, that was a translation. I later found out, once I learned some Japanese, that a closer translation would be fight versus a weapon boss, because these are weapon characters. It's understandable that he thought armed boss because weapon, but these are anthropomorphized weapons, bouncing around. And,
I guess that makes sense. I actually never thought of it like that, because the graphics, it's the graphics in the first game. They were great. Not saying that they were bad or anything, but I just kind of assumed that these are just like wacky little Mario enemies, that fit in the universe. I never thought that they were just like living weapons basically. But yeah, that makes sense. And so is that why you kind of got into learning Japanese? Was through understanding like the names of these songs from the game?
Yeah, what happened was they've reviewed this on CD set on this site. I have got to see if I can somehow track down this CD. And oddly enough, like eBay already existed, and in fact, I had already used eBay to buy the copy of the game, Super Mario RPG, and it was a sealed copy and everything. It only cost me like $36 or something like that.
Wait, really? Wow. Those things are very rare today.
Yeah. This was like 1998. So
dang, Kenisu. Or Kenisu.
Oh yeah.
Man.
Well, it doesn't matter, but no, just really. But
I mean, I think that stuff's cool, because like I used to collect like little video game memorabilia in the past and stuff. I still kind of do here and there, but like I always hear stories about like how people find like sealed copies of games from like a pawn shop or something, and it's always like kind of fascinating, because it must have been on some kind of journey to get there, and it's like I don't know. I think that's really cool. Yeah. And even today, like, I think those things go for like thousands, sealed copies of really anything.
Definitely. But so I, for some reason, even though I had already used eBay before, I must not have thought of eBay, or I wasn't able to find it on eBay or something. But through searching through some search engine, I was able to find that somebody on some website had made a track list, or not a track list, but a list of all the CDs that they owned. And they were a Final Fantasy fan, and they had bought the Super Mario RPG soundtrack because it has the 3 Final Fantasy tracks in it. And it was listed among the CDs that he owned. And so I got in contact with him, and I said, would you be willing to part with this? And give me an offer, and I'll tell you what I think. And so, long story short, I wound up getting the 2 CD set in the mail, and it was just amazing. And so I opened it up, and I'm expecting, because of the whole what I had learned about Super Sentai and English being so prevalent in Japan, I was expecting the track list to be all in English, right? And it turned out that only a few of the tracks were in English, and everything else it had been translated from Japanese into English for Soundtrack Central.
Like, were there actual lyrics?
Well, no. Well, this is the music directly from the game, so there wasn't any lyrics.
Oh,
for the
okay.
songs, but
Oh, okay. I thought this was like a
I'm talking about the track list.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, okay.
But
yeah, I thought you were referring to like a remake of like the Mario RPG music, like the CD, like the Mother CD kind of did that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I got a little confused there, but anyway.
Yeah. So I look at this and I go, you know what? I'm going to try something. And I was a subscriber at the time to Electronic Gaming Monthly magazine, and in one of the issues that was recent at the time, they put out this katakana chart, and I kind of ripped the chart right out of the magazine, and I just started studying it, and I looked at everything that falls in line with everything that I could see in the track list, right down on this notebook paper, like all these, I'd number all the tracks, and then I'd put blanks everywhere that I didn't know something, because, I didn't even know hiragana yet. I didn't have a chart for hiragana, or so I thought.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just putting blank, blank, blank. Oh, here's a katakana character, okay, and this is and then I looked down the chart and I entered that in, and to be honest, I don't know why I was doing that really, but it got the ball rolling, and it really kickstarted this fire in me to try and actually learn this stuff. So then I don't know how I discovered it, because I must have forgotten about it, but I had a copy of Mario Paint. In the manual for Mario Paint, it had charts for both hiragana and katakana, and
really,
so now I had access to hiragana, and so I had everything except for kanji, and they had, like, I think EGM or somebody had one of these things had mentioned kanji, and how it was just this uber complex not really alphabet, but writing system that you can never ever possibly hope to learn in your lifetime. So just give up now. No. But I didn't know any kanji, but so I still left those parts blank, but I was transcribing all the stuff from the charts that I could see
in the
track list.
I don't mean to interrupt the story, but like is a kanji like help me kind of understand, like, is a kanji like a Japanese letters, or?
Okay, so I just take it for granted nowadays that most people would know this in communities that have to do with fans of Japanese things. But basically, you have hiragana and katakana, and those are two. They're basically alphabets they're comprised mostly of a consonant and a syllable.
Okay.
And they're 46 characters each. And then you have kanji, which is thousands and thousands of characters, but the thing is that kanji is basically the really complex stuff that we associate Chinese writing with, because that's it comes from China. It was Japanese took it from China, and basically kanji is a lot more complex. It's made up. You can break it down and make it simpler for yourself to learn it. It has what's called radicals, which are basically just little symbols that can be found in pretty much every kanji character, and a symbol will be only like one or two brush strokes, or anywhere from one to however many brush strokes. But it still breaks it down and makes it easier to learn kanji, because most kanji are made up. Most, if not all, kanji are made up of these radicals. And so you can pick up all the different little radicals, and you're like, okay, and you can learn mnemonics. Hopefully I'm painting enough of a picture that people can get an idea in their mind.
I mean, but, I'm no genius when it comes to translating, so you definitely know more about that than me. So but it's interesting to hear like how that works and stuff.
Yeah, but with kanji, in case you were wondering if it could get more complex, it does, because most kanji characters have multiple readings, multiple ways of saying, pronouncing each character, and depending on the situation, you have, and I'm making this sound more complex than I need to get my point across, but basically there's a kun reading and an on reading.
Okay.
A kun reading is when you got a kanji character that's kind of by itself, except if it's, say, an adjective and you've got some hiragana trailing after it, that makes up the word. And that's when you want to use the kun reading, the kanji, and I'm speaking in generalized terms in most cases.
So kun is
And,
is one
sometimes they'll
kanji.
in most cases, I would say.
Okay.
And then you have the own reading, and you want to.
And so, like, what's
that's
own?
Usually
What's that
what
mean?
the own reading. O-O-N. It's spelled O-N.
Oh, okay.
And
Own.
own and kun. Kun is spelled K-U-N. But the own reading is basically usually what you want to use when you see two kanji characters kind of mashed together to form one word, and two or more kanji characters, you know. And
Gotcha.
the interesting thing with using kun readings with one kanji is that sometimes, like what I've noticed with names, with Japanese names, usually when it's regular everyday words, you'll want to use, when there's more than one kanji lumped together, you'll want to use the own reading. But when it's a Japanese person's name, you'll want to use the kun reading usually. Oftentimes. But
Why do you think that is?
you know, I really have no idea. Oh, no, I think I know what it is. It probably has something to do with the fact that own readings are basically when the Japanese took kanji from China, and you know, that's what kanji means, is Chinese characters.
Oh, okay.
But when the Japanese took kanji from China, they also kind of took hints of the language as best as the Japanese could turn Chinese pronunciations of words into their own language, or translate it through the way that the Japanese speak and their writing and speaking system.
Mhm.
So own readings are basically corruptions, for lack of a better word, of Chinese pronunciations usually.
Oh,
And so
okay.
with Japanese names, you're not going to get, people aren't going to be named, people in Japan aren't going to be named after Chinese pronunciations of things, so they're going to be named after Japanese pronunciations of things. So,
yeah, of course.
so that's probably why they use kun readings in Japanese names. But yeah, that was probably a longer explanation that was necessary.
And no, I think I'm wrapping my brain around it. Like, I appreciate the lesson, but like, it's definitely very complicated. I'm not a language major or anything like that.
Right.
But that's interesting I understand a little bit about Japanese now, and I appreciate that. Everybody in this comment section of the video are going to be like, Remy, you're so stupid, you don't know.
No.
And I'm like, okay, like, I don't know. I don't know everything. I don't know.
Well,
but anyway,
it was a very slow process for me too. I was learning this stuff as a teenager and in my early 20s. So this is when peak learning time, right?
Right. I mean, I have a similar experience.
Really get it. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do. I have a similar experience where when I was on my 13th birthday, I asked for two things for my birthday. It was an NES and a copy of Mother. And I soon realized, that those two things didn't really go together very well, and I cried, and I was like, "Oh no!" But like, when I asked for the game, I was very keen on I'm gonna be like, all right, guys, I'm gonna learn Japanese. Like, I told my families, like, I'm gonna learn Japanese and I'm gonna play this game, because like at the time, there weren't any like reproduction carts or anything. I didn't know anything about like emulation or whatever, and so
now you managed to get a copy of Mother. Like the Japanese same. Oh
yeah, I got the Famicom cartridge of the game, and like I was thinking,
oh man,
it was tragic.
Your poor 13-year-old heart. No.
It was kind of tragic. Yeah, but like, it was still one of my favorite birthdays. It was a fun time until like after the party was over and I put the game into the NES thinking that it would work just fine. But like, when I got, little did I know, right? But like, I told my parents about it, and I was like, it's this really cool game. It's called Mother. It's in Japan, and it was released like 20 years ago or blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, but it's all in Japanese. Would you be able to, learn all that? Are you sure you want it? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to learn Japanese. Heck yeah. And so, I was very adamant to just play the game and find my way around the Japanese dialogue, but, it came and went. I was a kid. Someday I might learn Japanese.
Like the game itself, inside the game, it only uses hiragana and katakana. So, there's no kanji. And that was kind of the way it was in games back in the day, because kanji was more complex characters, and the older systems couldn't really reproduce those characters very well. in ways that people could actually read them, because there's small text and all that.
Right. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that explanation, though. But let's go back to some of these questions here. Okay. So Biozilla asked 3 questions, and he also asked a little bit more here. He asked, "How did you find out about the Mother series?"
Smash 64. Yeah.
Okay.
It was the first Smash Brothers came out on the N64. A friend of mine had a copy, and he let me borrow it, and he had actually unlocked all the characters, or I guess, or something like that. And
okay.
He said he let me borrow it, and he said, I'll tell you what, you can, I'll erase what I've already done, and if you promise to unlock everything again for me, and while you're borrowing it. I'm like, well, yeah, that's cool. And at least that's how I remember it. My memory's a little bit fuzzy, but basically, same old story that you hear a lot. I guess I was intrigued by this Ness character because I finally managed to unlocking Ness. I can't remember what it was exactly, but it was this horribly difficult thing.
You had to play classic mode on normal difficulty and without getting any continues.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't sound too difficult.
I had a similar, I had a similar experience. That's why I know that. When I was really young, around like 13, 9 or whatever, around that age gap, I was particularly obsessed with Super Smash Brothers for the N64. Around this time, like Brawl came out, and Brawl's amazing in its own way. But I just love Smash 64 because at my local McDonald's, they had these kiosks for a little while where you could play Super Smash Brothers, and you could also play like Kirby 64 or whatever. Really? I think there was like a Final Fantasy one, I don't remember, or like a Pokemon Stadium. But
that's really interesting.
Yeah. Some establishments have that. Like I know there are some McDonald's out there that still have kiosks, but this local McDonald's I used to go to, they don't do that anymore. It's like a small little dainty McDonald's, and that was my first experience with the Smash series. And so for the longest time, I tried to get my hands on a copy of the game so I could replay through that magic. And so what I decided to do is I went to GameStop once, and I was looking around like, do you guys have Smash 64? And they're like, no, but we have Melee. And so I went home really disappointed with a copy of Melee in my hands.
A horrible disappointment.
It's funny because like Melee is like one of the most beloved games in the series, and I was going home like looking at the back of the cover, and I'm like, man, darn, but like I went home, played through Melee, and enjoyed it. And then I eventually got an N64 and got a copy of the game, and from a friend of mine. Actually, he was actually one of my neighbors, and I went over to his house, and I don't remember what, but we had like a bet or like a deal or something where it's like I don't exactly remember the details, but he gave me his copy of Super Smash Brothers, no cost whatsoever, and I was obsessed with unlocking the characters in that game. I will unlock them, and then I will reset the data, and then I will unlock them again.
Yeah, that's a really fun thing.
And I remember my first time unlocking all the characters and how difficult Ness was. So I agree with your statement that it was difficult at the time.
Yeah, but when I finally unlocked him and I'm playing through as him, and I'm like, oh, who is this character? This is really interesting. And he's saying stuff like Pika Thunder, related to, does it have something to do with Pikachu? What's going on here?
Yeah, I used to have the same issue with like Lucas in Brawl. I thought when he was saying PK Fire, I thought he was saying PK Butter. Like it's just misinterpretations or something, so
favorite food.
Exactly.
Die butter.
Butter. I think his favorite food is like omelets, right? For Lucas.
For Lucas, yeah.
So when you were interested in this Ness character, you I'm assuming you did a little background check.
I went into the game had this little blurb that you go into that introduces each character and tells you a little bit about them.
Right. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it says that I can't remember exactly what it said, but it was something about how Ness is a kid with psychic powers. He sets out from his hometown of Onett to fight aliens or something like that. It said something that was just enough to intrigue me, going, okay, that sounds like my kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I looked up Earthbound. This is the ROM that I was playing, but I looked up Earthbound and I played through it, and I fell in love with it. This is amazing. I can't believe that this slipped through the cracks. I could believe that it slipped through the cracks with me because actually, you want to know the real tragedy is that I had a subscription to Nintendo Power until like I think November 1994.
Oh, is that when the Earthbound issue came out?
No, like the Earthbound issue was I think in June 95. So
Okay.
I came really close to seeing previews of Earthbound right when it was coming out.
And getting those scratch and sniff cards too, like those things are novelty now.
But yeah, if I had gotten to that, I'm convinced that if I had gotten that issue and seen all the screenshots and the clay models, this game stinks be darned. I would have been very much intrigued to check out the game immediately.
Right.
Yeah, I loved it. It was my kind of story. I loved how it was all bright and cheerful and everything, and then it starts to get weirder and weirder, and then all of a sudden it gets really, really dark toward the end, and I'm like, okay, this is my kind of thing. I love this stuff.
It is a nice blend of emotions. I think I mentioned that before, but like Earthbound's like really good at like blending feelings and emotions and like appeals, you know, like when you first I think one of the complaints of the game early was like the graphics were like too kiddie or something. I think Mr. Banadega mentioned that in the last interview, but it was like
when Barney-esque romp through a McDonald's Playland.
But yeah, that was like one of the major complaints, and then you get to the end and it's like, okay, well, you know, I guess these kiddie graphics don't really matter in the end. It's just like, you know, it's the story that's really, you know, what it's trying to tell. It doesn't matter really what it looks like necessarily. Even though the graphics in that game were, you know, I liked them personally, especially like the enemy sprites. They were fun.
I mean, I liked them too. It was in that era where everything was just everybody was hyped up for the N64, and everything was just about graphics, 3D this and all that. And you know, I always, you know, bright, colorful stuff has always appealed to me. And I'm Power Rangers. I mean, you know, what can I say? And so I went through that with I went through playing through Earthbound, and then I found out looking through some sites, I was starting to discover some websites. I think at the time this might have been Starbound.net or Earthbound.net, whatever it was at the time.
Yeah, I think it was called something differently at the time, but I don't exactly remember the details, but I think it was called like something else that had to do with like the Earthbound name.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was Earthbound.net. I was looking through it, and I discovered, oh hey, there's a small little community here, and I was looking through what they had for the fan comics at the time. The main one that you know, immediately grabbed my attention was these series of comics by this fan calling himself Worker and Parasite. And
okay,
he had go ahead.
What was his name?
Yeah, Worker and Parasite. And he had a series of comics that had to do with basically just little gags about Earthbound and stuff. Little things. I remember he had this 3-part gag story about trying to figure out who Nessa's father is, and so basically figures out, or it brings a bunch of people, the characters from the game into one room, and they're like, okay, I have here the results of the DNA test, and we're gonna find out who Nessa's father is. Ooh. And you know, you got like a phone in one corner of the room, and it's like, is it? And you know, the guy at the front of the room is just like, but before I do, let's go over all the candidates. And is it Gygas? And you know, you get like the devil's machine in one corner of the room.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of his comics right now. I actually never heard of him before.
There was that, and then it goes on, and one of them says, one of the other, is it Dr. Andonuts? And I'm like, what? And then, or is it the guy? And one of them was, is it the guy from the end of Earthbound Zero? And you see this guy with a trench coat with his back turned to you. And I'm like, huh? I've never played Earthbound Zero. And I think that was one of the first sparks I got to give Mother One a try.
Like, do you remember the name of the comic that was? Oh, I see who you're talking about. Like, who's Nessa's father? That's like a part series.
It was a 3-part series.
Oh, yeah, I see.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that kind of inspired me to look a little bit more into Earthbound Zero. and I'm in my searches. I kind of just before I started even playing the game,
Mhm.
I discovered like this teeny tiny little image file that somebody had on a page somewhere,
Mhm.
and it was a scan of the back cover of the Mother soundtrack, and it showed the three kids. It showed that shot from the commercial, the live action commercial that they shot,
Mhm.
where the three kids are facing the mountain
Oh
and the
yeah.
big cloud and everything.
Mhm.
And I'm looking at this shot of looking at this scan, going, man, this is really interesting. I wonder what's going on here, you know? And you can see like this robot just kind of lying there on the ground.
Mhm. That's a really iconic like scene right there. I'm pretty sure there were I briefly talked about it in my Mother Iceberg videos, but it was like some animes made a couple references to that particular scene in the commercial.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I know Gintama did. There's probably a few others. I have a feeling there are, but that's like
Didn't know that.
yeah, that's like the most iconic one is Gintama making a little parody of like the Mother One poster of that particular scene where they're looking up at the mountain and stuff. I think there are some people that like did some AI upscaling of some of those photos, like old scans or whatever. And so, that's
really?
obviously like really great to have, because then you can use them for like a 4K wallpaper or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah.
I think what was keeping me from playing it or trying to play it was I was still intimidated by actually playing a raw Japanese game.
Like, why was that? Is it because of the language barrier?
Uh, yeah. Well, I mean, I was learning Japanese, but I was kind of intimidated by the idea. I'm trying to remember things from way back when, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
this may not be exactly how it went down, but this is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think of why it was that I hesitated, but whatever the case may be, was I was looking through the internet and I saw that it was that somebody had mentioned that about the Neo Demi Force hack or whatever.
Oh yeah.
Hack,
Mm-hmm.
not hack, but yeah, it had the Phil Sandhop translation, the official translation,
Mm-hmm.
and so I played that, and I think it was that, and going back again to what I was saying way earlier with the feeling that the game produces,
Mm-hmm.
and it was that weird digging up something and discovering it feel. That was just something old and something bizarre,
Mm-hmm.
because you kind of get that with the Phil Sandhop dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
Is there are a lot of weird kind of stilted lines, and I love them for it.
Yeah.
And
in the last interview I did, I was talking to Mr. Banadega about how like Phil Sandhop, has this his writing in that game felt like particularly passionate. There's just something about the way he wrote things I liked slightly more than like the more official.
like Tomatoes.
Yeah, Tomatoes. Yeah,
Sure.
there's some things I'd liked more, of course, in that version, but that's just my personal preference. But anyway,
Tomato would capture some nuances that were lost in official North American version.
oh yeah, for sure.
The Sandhop version is like really, there's something really special about it that really brought out that strange feeling to me.
Right.
And here's the kicker, though. Sorry to say, I don't think I immediately fell in love with the game while I was playing it, actually. Here's the funny thing. When I had been playing through Earthbound and I got to that last battle with the first stage of the last battle with Gygus or Gigas,
Right.
whatever, and everybody calls the track Pokey or Porky Means Business. For me, I always associate the track with Gygus, so for me, it's a Gygus battle theme, and it made a really big impression on me because it starts off with that 8-bit tune,
Right.
and then it all of a sudden goes into this heavy metal thing, and
Right.
whoa, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And
They did that intentionally to
and,
shock people, and also to kind of show off what the sound chip was like capable of doing on that system.
exactly. And you want to know what's really funny about that? Total serendipity. This is complete chance that this happened. But my very first time in that battle with Gygus with the music going, I'm hearing the 8-bit music, and then the very first time he uses PK Rockin' Alpha on me, I get hit and the meter starts going down. That's when the music switched over from 8-bit to heavy metal, and I'm like, whoa!
Whoa. That's cool.
So it was pretty effective.
Super effective,
It
which
was,
is a Pokemon term, but
yeah, it was a complete chance that happened, but it was a really cool.
I will say that since you brought that up, I recall that you made like a little drawing about that scene, and Ness is like doing a little air guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. One of the others is just face palming, and
Yeah.
so I heard that track from the game, and I had myself convinced that with my Super Sentai being a fan of Power Rangers and speculating on what this was about in the original Japanese show and all that, I started to speculate. You know what? I just bet you that 8-bit track, that 8-bit part of the track is a reference to the final battle from the first game. I bet you. That's what my thinking was at the time. And so that was what kind of gave me the drive to go all the way through the first game. And I was ultimately wrong, but that's how I played the first game. It was a little bit after that the game started to have the staying power with me that hooks into me, and I started to realize, you know what? There's just something about that game. I mean, Earthbound was incredible. Earthbound was having kind of the same effect on me, but there was something quieter and more subtler about Mother 1, about Earthbound 0, that really got to me, and that got to me in a much more subtle way, and
right, because in Earthbound it kind of took the original and then amplified it and then like tried to turn it up to like 100. That's kind of how I think of it. I think Itoy probably thinks of it that way too. Like, Mother 1 was just like, if you've seen Mother 1, you haven't seen Mother 2. It's going to be just like that, but it's going to be even better, type of way of thinking.
Yeah, but that's right. Kind of how I got into Earthbound 0, Mother 1, and
well, cool. Thanks for sharing that.
It brought on this feeling that eventually inspired me to start the fan comic that I did.
Nice.
And,
yeah, we haven't even touched on that.
I started coming up with. No, we haven't. But yeah, let's see. What other questions do we have?
Let's see. Okay, so what are some of your favorite moments from Mother 1? This is a question from Biozilla.
Okay, I would say, a lot of the stuff that I think most people cite when they talk about how much they love or some of their favorite moments from this particular game is like Lloyd in the tank saving Ninten, Anna, and Teddy from R7038.
Man, I can't even remember that name by heart.
Well, I mean, I've been running over this scene in my head for years and years and years. So
oh yeah, you actually drew that scene too.
It was actually on DeviantArt. I think it's probably my most popular piece.
Oh, you don't say.
I think so. Yeah, I called it Go Lloyd Go, and it was my first. I was kind of experimenting with a combination of traditional pencil hand-drawn art and digital coloring. So
that brings up another question. This is another question from Biozilla. It's related to this topic. It's how did you develop your art style, and how would you describe it?
Well, that. We're going to go off into another really long tangent, I guess, but
really deep rabbit hole.
That's simple. Yeah, it's a rabbit hole. But basically, when I was 6, I was, all kids draw, right? And it isn't until kind of later on that they decide that a lot of people will decide, you know what, I'm not good at drawing. I'm going to give up on this, But drawing as a kid, and let's see, I was 6. This was 1988, and my favorite show on TV was DuckTales.
Oh yeah, you drew a DuckTales comic too. I've seen that before somewhere.
Oh yeah, you're probably talking about the 2 pages that I did to try and submit for the 30th anniversary for a comic.
Oh really? That was made for the 30th anniversary? Yeah, wow, that's cool.
I was trying to submit it. I didn't know how to go about it. I didn't really know who to submit it to, but there were Disney comics being published by, I think, IDW at the time.
And they were uploading comics of like fans that fans made, right?
No, they weren't, but I was kind of inspired by the Don Rosa story, and it's not 1987 anymore, and that's when Don Rosa came into the scene, and that's going into a whole other picture. I'm sure you have no idea what I'm talking about, but
Don Rosa.
I want to.
Let's see. Okay, yeah. Comic book writer, best known for Disney comics.
Yeah, he wrote. He's best known for the life and times of Scrooge McDuck. And that basically took the work of Carl Barks, who was the creator of Scrooge McDuck back in the 1940s. And Carl Barks, and just for the record, that's Carl Barks, Carl with a C, Barks as in the sound a dog makes.
Okay.
Because a lot of people will hear me say that, and they think that I'm saying Karl Marx. I'm like, no, this has nothing to do with
not that guy. Nope. Yeah, the other Carl.
We're talking about a capitalist duck here, so
yeah. But I've heard of DuckTales through these comics. I actually my first introduction to him was, I guess I watched a clip of DuckTales online when I was really little, and I was like, oh yeah, that was it was a little before my time, but I was like intrigued by like the cartoons of that era.
See, I discovered the comics through the cartoon.
Oh really?
But
yeah, because cartoons back then were kind of like were kind of made for marketing purposes, most of them anyway. But
yeah, they were. Yeah. Basically, DuckTales, what it is that it takes the comics that were back from the 40s and 50s that were created by Barks, and it kind of adapts several of them. Several of the episodes are direct adaptations from stories from the comic books, and I consider it two different universes. You have the Barks Duckverse from the and Barks and Rosa Duckverse from the comics, and then you have DuckTales, which is kind of a different universe. Different things happen. Different characters are in there sometimes.
Oh, interesting.
There's some crossover. Like you get Gyro Gearloose, you get Gladstone Gander, which, by the way, in DuckTales they kind of did Gladstone dirty, because in the original DuckTales, he was in the original comics. Gladstone is just this really annoying character who's infuriatingly lucky, and the idea is that you love to hate him. He's supposed to be a foil for the perpetually unlucky Donald. And,
yeah, I see. Yeah.
And so that you're supposed to love to hate Gladstone, but in DuckTales he only shows up in a couple episodes, and just like, I can't bring myself to hate this character.
Oh yeah, right.
But
have you ever heard of Howard the Duck?
Yeah, I've never seen it, but
yeah, or no, it was like, I'm not just talking about the movie. I'm talking about like the comics and stuff.
The comics and everything.
I don't know that much about it, but that's like the most I probably know about like Duck comics from that time, because I watched a whole documentary about it.
Well, yeah, and I'm pretty sure that's not Disney.
But, yeah, no, it's definitely not Disney.
But yeah,
of course not. But Disney, I think, wanted to be involved in making like the movie for it, which was atrocious from what I hear. I haven't seen it, but
I heard it was pretty bad. But basically, what got me started drawing, like, DuckTales was my favorite show, and I'd be trying to draw the ducks, trying to draw Uncle Scrooge and everything. But the thing is that the beaks on these ducks, it would always foil me. I was just 6 years old trying to draw these beaks, and I think that kids might generally have trouble, when they're drawing. I think kids might have trouble thinking in 3 dimensions when they're drawing. The duck beaks, I was having so much trouble with these things, and then one day, and I remember where I was. I was just in the dining room, at the dining room table, just by myself, trying again to draw duck beaks, and somehow it just kind of clicked, and I knew where the lines would go. And if I were to somehow find that original drawing and look at it now, it would probably be atrocious to my eyes. But it was just, but for me at the time, it really clicked in my head. Oh, okay, this is how you draw a duck beak. And then all of a sudden it was like a light bulb turned on. I'm like, okay, this is what I wanted to do. I want to draw for my life, for a living, and for everything. I wanted to get into animation and stuff like that. That still hasn't gone anywhere, but comics are the closest thing I can do to animation, to realizing that dream. Yeah, with my art style informed and inspired by several things over the years, like, going back to Dragon Ball. I really admire one thing that I really noticed when I started reading the manga, not so much when I was watching the anime. some reason, but when I was reading the manga, I would notice Toriyama had this thing about, especially in the later Piccolo Daimao art, characters still kind of have this round appearance to them, but you also still have freakishly cartoony expressions sometimes when a character would be shocked at something. Sometimes their mouths would just be open, completely unwide, like their jaws would become unhinged.
Right. Yeah, that was a big thing, back around that time, because a lot of anime they kind of started out as comedies, and then they slowly and gradually, thanks to the influence of Dragon Ball and a few other manga that were out at the time, they would slowly and gradually become more serious and more like shonen, like fighting and stuff and powers and all that stuff. I was gonna say, we were talking about Dragon Ball earlier, and I was gonna say, I think one of my favorite arcs in the original was the mercenary towel when he came into the picture, and that was a fun little fight.
Yeah, that's Red Ribbon. I love that. I think the Red Ribbon Army arc is my favorite arc in all of Dragon Ball.
Yeah, where he totally takes out the whole army.
Oh yeah. It's just amazing because Dragon Ball, it's an adventure series, and there's a lot of traveling that goes on in the Red Ribbon Army arc. So you get to see all these different locales, and it's just a really, really fun story.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed it.
But yeah, this would be where my kind of little bits and pieces that I would take, kind of absorb for my own art style. And so you get bits of DuckTales, you get bits of Dragon Ball, you get a mishmash of a bunch of different things.
Really. I think a lot of artists, they try to take little bits and pieces of things that they like from pop culture, and they kind of just put it together into something that hopefully they find really cool. I think it's important to do that, because then you're increasing your own interest in your own work.
That's a good point.
But I was okay. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Do you want to?
No, you go ahead.
Okay.
I didn't really have anything.
I was gonna say, Biozilla has a couple more questions here. He says, "What else, movies, shows, bands, etc., are you a big fan of?" And I think you already, obviously Super Sentai, Power Rangers.
Super Sentai and DuckTales, because I still watch DuckTales. But yeah, and
the new one. Have you seen the new one, the reboot?
I'm kind of scared of the new one.
Yeah,
I watched the first 7 or so episodes when it was first airing, and I'm possibly opening up myself for a lot of flack here when I say this, but I'm like, okay, so my apologies beforehand, but it just did not feel like DuckTales to me.
That's fair.
It felt like a completely different show, and the reboot kind of scares me, especially since a lot of people nowadays, they use the reboot to kind of maybe this is a Reddit thing because I've seen it on the subreddit. They'll use the reboot as kind of a bludgeon against the classic series, because the reboot does a lot of things that are more to modern taste than
well, that's the case for a lot of reboots, is that they try to they have like a specific audience they need to satisfy, and so that's why a lot of shows from like the 80s and 90s are being rebooted in like a particular style that fits those needs. Obviously it has a lot of people upset, especially with like the Teen Titans Go debacle and all that.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, and so and I don't blame you. I don't watch a whole lot of like animated shows that much these days, but I do have my own like particular tastes and stuff. But yeah, like I can totally respect that opinion that you found something interesting in DuckTales, like the original, and you just didn't feel it in the new one. It takes like a certain type of people to make something like that well, and then when those people aren't there, it either goes into a bad direction or like a surprisingly good direction, but it's often few and far between.
I'm not necessarily saying that the reboot is bad. I'm just saying it's a different show.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying too, is I'm not trying to say that it's bad.
It doesn't feel like DuckTales to me, and but I think with the main thing about DuckTales, and I've been so swamped with projects and other things lately that but that was another thing that I've really wanted to do lately, and I've had a lot of time to think about it when I'm at work, because I work at retail. I'm a bagger at the local grocery store, and
really?
So I have a lot of time to but I have a lot of time to think while I'm working, especially if I'm just sitting sitting down bagging ice for the bags of ice put out front. But I have a lot of time to think about these things, and like, oh man, one project I want to get back to when I have the time, or when I've taken care of the projects that everybody else is waiting on me for. I would dare say that I love the musical score from DuckTales even more so than the cartoon itself.
Really?
Because
okay.
Oh yeah, and it was composed by Ron Jones, and it's just this amazing adventure score that has all these complicated leitmotifs in it. It's got a bunch of character themes. Well, that's a leitmotif. And it's very punchy, very dramatic, and it's never ever been released. And that's
Really?
something that really grabs me, is that it's never been released on CD, on vinyl, on digital, or anything.
Wow. Why?
The only way to listen to the music, I don't know, maybe because I'm a fan of it. No.
That's upsetting though.
I
Like,
just have bad luck sometimes.
no. It's just upsetting that like this man like made a soundtrack and you can't even buy that exclusively, or like.
Well, yeah. I found out very recently, actually, that this one soundtrack label, they specialize in film scores and TV scores and stuff like that. Like back in 2017, they put out this post. Somebody was requesting that they attempt to release the DuckTales score. And the guy who runs it said, well, runs that label. One of the two guys who runs the label, he said, well, we tried, but it's not going to happen. Like there's that. And that was back in 2017.
What? I wonder why.
To this day, I don't really know what. Yeah, to this day, we don't really know why they were able to release. They had a Disney license, so they could release them. This is Entrada Records, this label, and they have a Disney license. And as far as I know, they're the only record label with that isn't Disney itself that has a Disney license. But they're known for putting out a lot of Disney film scores, but apparently TV stuff is harder to do. There's a lot more red tape in TV material.
Of course, yeah, because there's specific guidelines when it comes to television and stuff
like that. But this was like back in 2017, and so people like me who really want to see the score released were just devastated by that. And then actually very, very recently, just a week or two ago, we got somebody else asked this guy, his name's Roger, about it. News on this, can you tell me a little bit more information on this? And this was on Facebook that I just kind of discovered this, stumbled upon it. And Roger came back and said, oh yeah, we're still trying. It's just nothing definitive yet. And I'll take that any day over it's not going to happen.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because then there's like at least a small, like slim chance that it'll come out.
Yeah.
So anything other than sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that going back to the projects, one of the projects that I want to finish up is back in around 2012, I did documentation of the music from DuckTales. I went through each episode and I figured out, okay, this is because it's a library score, and or most of it, a good chunk of it was composed. Well, I should say all of it was composed with the idea of reusing it in future episodes. So across about 100 episodes, that's DuckTales is 100 episodes long, and you've got all this. There's only like about 4 hours of music worth that was actually written and recorded for the show. So you could if it were released say on CD, you could bring that out in like something like a 4-disc set, and it would be done. But
yeah, true.
But yeah, I went through each episode, and I documented each little music cue and when it happens and all that, and to try and figure out all these different things and like how much music is in the show and all that exactly. And I found out in the later years that I got a lot of speculation wrong about certain things, about what episode a certain cue actually came from. And so I started thinking about it more while I'm working, just bagging ice, and I started realizing, oh, I got that wrong. Oh, there's a theme in there I didn't pick up on. And I'm hearing the music cue in my head, and I'm going, oh, I didn't notice that melody before. Oh, it's from this episode. It's not from that episode.
Oh,
okay. And so
I
wanna like, if I have some free time to myself, after I get done with the more pressing projects,
Mm-hmm.
to be able to go back and polish that up.
Yeah, do you think that they'd come out with an OST like at this point? I mean, the
Yeah,
show's like, you
but,
know, how old is the show now? Like it was in the 90s, right?
Yeah, it came out in 1987.
Mhm.
Actually, most of the show aired in 87, and then it eventually ended in 1990.
Wow. I mean, that is actually now that I think about it, that's the case for like a lot of animated movies around that time, where time will eventually like wash away any chance of like there being like the original soundtrack being uploaded or something, or just over the years like people would lose like the wax CD or whatever they used, you know, that had the original soundtrack to the movie, because it just wasn't like, there was no like real way of archiving them other than just probably selling them to like a museum of modern art or something like that, or you know, like the internet. There was no internet, and so like you couldn't put it on there, and so it was, I think it was a very common thing for soundtracks to not be, to like easily get lost. I know that was a thing with like the Ralph Bakshi movies.
Well, you have films, or when movies and TV shows would get soundtracks, it would be just the vocal material, just the songs.
Oh yeah.
And maybe you'd get like one or two tracks that were selections from the score, but that was the way it was back in the day. And I think that kind of answers Biozilla's question about what bands I'm a fan of, because I'm not really a huge fan of any bands, but I'm, like I said, a huge film score nut, and
Right.
I still have an iPod. I still listen to it frequently, and almost very, very close to 100% of it is film and TV scores.
That's fair. We got a really interesting question here. This question is related to your name. Where does the 3000 in Kenisu3000 come from?
Oh, yeah. You know, I like to say that it comes from Mystery Science Theater 3000, but I'd be lying if I said that, because I didn't really discover that show until like 2010 when I got Netflix. But it's just kind of a dumb little story. If I remember rightly, I was going by some name and then 2000 at the end of it.
Okay.
The end of the name, on some forum or some message board somewhere. And this was right around the turn of the century. And then I was signing up for another message board, and funnily enough, I think it had to do with learning Japanese, actually.
Oh,
but this
how
was
convenient.
like 2001. But yeah, I was going by 2000 because it was just like the little joke thing about how you know, some sites had it so that you had to have numbers in your username or something like that.
Oh yeah.
Or in your password or something. So I'm like, okay, what number would I want to? And I think what brought the 2000 about was I was just thinking about how like machines and how they get upgraded and everything. Like now this is the such and such
like a
2000.
robot. Oh, I get it. Yeah, I was actually curious about that, because when I looked at your name, I was like, Kenisu3000, is that like a robot? You know, like here's my latest invention. Yeah. It's the blah 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 3000. Yeah.
You're not. Yeah, exactly. You know, you got it. But I was thinking something along the lines of that with 2000, but because it was, I think it was about 2001 or something when I was on this forum, and so I thought, well, 2000 doesn't sound as cool anymore because we already had the year 2000.
Right.
Let's upgrade it a bit. Okay, 3000.
Yeah. That makes sense, because it's like, oh, I could use 2000, but that's not like the year it actually is. So I could just go 3000, you know, because then, you know, I'll be dead by then. It won't matter.
Yeah.
But yeah, interesting. Thank you for answering that. Okay, so got all the Biozilla questions out of the way. Thank you again, Biozilla, for cooperating and helping out with all that, and you know, great questions.
Yeah, Biozilla is really cool. He's a really
you're familiar with his work.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The main stuff that he had been helping me with is the pictures in the encyclopedia. You know, the actual real life shots of places.
Right.
He somehow manages to track down where these locations are. And
that's the mystery of Biozilla.
And he tells me what they are.
Yeah, it's cool. I actually never really asked him like about that. You know, it's weird because like I talk to him a lot, like on Discord. Actually, we go back and forth. You know, it's weird that I never really like. I guess he told me at one point, but I just I don't know. Maybe I got to get him on this, you know, on this show. Perhaps you know, like we can learn a few things.
Yeah, dude's a wizard. I'm telling you.
Cool. That's
I
cool.
don't know how he does the stuff that that he does. But
yeah, I am just as dumbfounded. So yeah, Biozilla, you might be next, my friend. I know you're watching this, but yeah, I mean, he's been a huge support, on my end as well. So he kind of deserves it at this point, But it's cool. Anything else that you and Biozilla have done, or is it just like mostly like scans?
Well, there's gonna be something that he's working on that. Taking part of. I don't know how much he's told people about, so I'll just leave
right. Yeah.
Up
yeah,
to
of course.
The future.
Mm-hmm. I'm in it too. Haha.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's cool that we're both working on a similar project. But anyway,
awesome.
Enough about that. We got to stay tight-lipped about it. But anyway, we got a question here from Tom M. Arts. What is the best way you go about writing long comics? I find myself burnt out halfway through a short joke comic, but I'd really like to do bigger projects. Love those old Mother comics, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And let's see. Yeah, short joke comics, huh? Getting burned out. I can relate to an extent because I had when I was in college, I had a comic strip that ran in my school paper. It was it was
Breaking the Mold,
just like a daily, and to this, I hate that name. I can't believe I did that because it sounds pretentious, doesn't it?
What is the influence behind it?
I wasn't meaning for it to be pretentious or anything. The idea behind it was that you get this group of kind of weirdos and nerds and all this stuff, and the idea behind it was the phrase "God broke the mold when he made you."
Oh, I see.
So the idea is that well, he broke the mold, but in kind of a weird way, that was the idea behind it.
Okay. I can see that.
You're definitely unique, but
yeah, and I've been looking around, and I noticed you made a lot of those little like short comic strips. It was that like a weekly, were they uploaded in like the school newspaper? Because I know like some colleges have their own like newspaper or like newsletter or whatever.
Yeah. This was in the Utah Statesman. They were running.
Nice. So like, most people really know you for like your Mother comics. Would you give like a brief explanation to like what Breaking the Mold is, or like who the characters are, and give us like a summary?
Yeah, well, I hope this doesn't really make people go out and search for it, because I look at some of those jokes that I am able to feel that like I'm proud of, but I'm just like, oh gosh, what was I thinking writing that? Oh my gosh, and this ran in my school paper. Oh my gosh. There
is some stuff about me on the internet that I'm not proud of either. Like there are some things there here and there, but like it just happens to everybody, I guess. When you're like a creative and you make something and you're like, oh, that didn't age well, or like I don't know, that doesn't fit my current criteria of like comedy,
But yeah, to go into detail about that, it's basically about a group of college students, and this is one thing that I kind of cringe at now, is that I inserted myself as the main character. But
Mary Sue,
or at least there are some Mary Sue-y parts, but and that's what I cringe at. But I just eventually he kind of turned into his own thing that wasn't really me. It kind of started off that way, but basically you get this group of college students, and they're very quirky and nerdy, and man, I don't know how to describe it. There's a little bit of social commentary. There's some like maybe thoughts that just shower thoughts that I'd have that I inserted in as a joke. And the idea is that you have this one character, the character who's named after me, and he's 24 and he's a freshman in college. So at first he's really freaked out about that. He's like, I'm 24 and I'm starting college late. What is everybody going to think of me?
Oh man. Yeah. I mean, I've seen people in college who are like 70. Like I've been in the same class with.
It was kind of the joke of the first few strips, though.
Oh yeah, it's like insecurities
I was kind of making
dwelling.
Yeah, I was making fun of myself because the same thing was going on with me. I was a freshman at age 24, and I wasn't super insecure like the guy in the comic strip, but I just kind of had I feel a little bit weird, but.
Well, don't feel too bad though, because there are like a lot of self-insert comics out there that are like that go like far worse. That are like the Lightbringer or Sonichu or something like that. Where it's just
oh gosh,
yeah, it could have been that. Trust me, but
the less said, the better.
Yeah, but what I've seen, what little bits I've seen, it's I think it's a charming little experience. it's a little relatable because I bet there are like some people that read that and they're like, oh man, I'm 24 and I'm going to college. I feel like I'm way too old for this stuff. And so I get where those insecurities come from. You can start really whenever you want. Like I had a professor in college who was an artist, and he started drawing when he was in his 40s. So you could have been that guy. But it's everybody has their own journey to success, and it may not be at a young age. It may not even be at like a middle age. It may be later on in your life. It depends, I guess.
Well, I was going to say that I can relate to the idea of kind of getting burned out on short form comics because, if you read Breaking the Mold, you'll notice that I keep starting to naturally gravitate towards longer story arcs. And and that's kind of, what kind of developed some of the characters and their weird quirkiness. Like there's this one character who he wears sunglasses all the time, but when he takes them off, he kind of loses his mind because and then I eventually decided to write this thing where toward the end where something happened in his past that caused that to happen. But
really?
Because I was gravitating toward more dramatic stories and everything, and so
that's actually really smart.
Weird.
Go ahead.
And then there's this one character who, I kid you not, I don't know what was in my head at the time, but there's this one character, short little guy. His name's Rick, and he was raised by parakeets. And
oh man,
he talks like a parakeet.
Oh, but that's quirky. I can dig that. Nice.
And so he kind of became one of my personal favorites to just throw in there. So I'm glad he turned into a mainstay that I felt like I could sort of use as a character to bounce off of the other characters whenever some quirky line had to get thrown out there.
Or even like as just like a random like, hi guys, I'm here, rock, just something
rock,
like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of rock. Yeah.
But, so like what are there any strategies that you use that help you, or is it just
long form comics?
Is it like is it just like the intrigue of like, oh man, like I wonder how like this would be like a cool addition, I wonder how that would work, and then you just find yourself making all these pages and you just don't even realize like, oh man, I'm making a really long comic here. Is that kind of how your process is?
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure you can relate to this as a creative, but when you start getting ideas in your head and they start snowballing and you're like, I gotta write all this stuff down. And,
oh my goodness, yes. Yes. Kenisu, man, you know me like the back of your hand all of a sudden, and I've only been talking to you for like the past couple hours.
Well, I feel the same way about you.
Oh, that's cool. Man, that feels that is a cool feeling right there. But it's just a generally like, I think that's just the journey of the creative really is sometimes, I'll come up with like these brilliant, like these really funny ideas and stuff like that. It's just like, oh man, I got to write this down. But it's also like 2:00 in the morning and I'm tired and I can't get up. Right. You wake up in a cold sweat and you're like, man, I got to write that down, but I can't move, so.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that I'm trying to say is that it's one of those things where I don't know. I could try to answer the question about how is the best way to write long comics, but I noticed that in the novel writing community, we talk about pantsing versus plotting. And for those who don't know what that is, that's basically, are you the type of person who, when you write, if you're a writer, if you write novels or whatever, are you the type of person who a novel comes to you as you're plotting it out, making all these different bullet points and stuff like that? Or are you the type of person who the novel comes to you as you're sitting down writing it without any real idea of what direction you're going in? And, there are people of both camps. And I found that I think personally, I'm about 75 to 80% a plotter and maybe 20 to 25% a pantser, but, personally. And I noticed, and with that Mother fan comic, when I first started it, I was effectively pantsing. I had some ideas that were just, they were coming to me and I'm like, okay, I got to get this down. But for whatever reason, and this is totally not like me, I don't know how it happened this way, but I started putting pencil to paper and drawing the comic out as I was figuring things out. And,
really?
And so there was a lot of pantsing that went on there too. And so as it went on, I don't know if that's the best way. I will say that that's, that had I not done that, had I just started taking notes and waiting until I had everything together, like with Hiromu Arakawa with Full Metal Alchemist and the manga, if I had it all together before I even started, I never would have even gotten started if I planned on having it all together. And
yeah, because like she didn't like really know like where the story was going to, right? Or am I like misremembering?
Well, no, she knew all of the major stuff that was going to happen. She had it plotted out, and so that's why you get like in really early chapters of the manga little references and things that you don't even realize is a reference, but it's going to be something that happens later on. It's like foreshadowing. I don't think I can give a single straight answer to this because there's an argument for both sides where you want to just dive in and start writing long comics as soon as you start getting some inspiration, or if you want to plot things out beforehand because you're bound to run into you know, there's that argument for just starting it off and just doing it. Also run the risk of running into some problems. Like I remember in those first few pages, I have it so that like on page 2 or page 3, basically it starts off with the prologue from Mother, and it shows the first scene is George and Maria getting kidnapped.
Oh, that was the first Mother comic you started working on, was the prologue?
Oh yeah, that's where I started. It was in the prologue.
So like you didn't start with like any other of like the I guess the kind of spin-offs to the Mother fan comics, like the Christmas special or anything. You kind of just started out with George's.
That stuff came later. Oh, actually, there was one. It wasn't really a comic. It was a little coloring book that I was making for, I think it was the local women's shelter. And some people who worked there knew about me, knew about my art, and they wanted me to make a coloring book for the kids at the shelter.
Oh, that's awesome.
I put together this quick little thing, and I was working on fan comic at the time. I was working on the prologue, so I had Mother on the brain. I'm like, I don't want to really get sidetracked. Let's just tell a tiny little story from the middle of the game. And so I kind of retold this little bit of, Ninten, and I called him Ken in the coloring book, but like in the novel. But this little story of Ken and Lloyd getting Anna's hat from the ranger station and going and giving Anna her hat back and meeting her.
Oh yeah.
And then they go on adventures together. That's kind of like the last page. They just became friends and went on many adventures together, and kind of ends like that. But that was after I started working on the comic. I think it was the first thing I actually uploaded to starman.net as fan art.
What was the reception to your comics? Do you remember?
To the fan comic online?
Yeah.
It is mainly positive. There were some things I had to learn about getting better at art and stuff like that. And I remember in one particularly memorable instance. Let's see, there was a guy on Starman.net at the time, and he was mainly the art guy, the guy you would submit to, and his name was Artemis251. And he did his own comics, and you look at some of his stuff, and he was definitely very talented, or knew his stuff with art, I should say. And some people were giving me feedback, most of it positive, some of it was just like, okay, you can work on this. And one of them actually was Toby Fox. Toby Fox was on Starman.net. He went by Radiation at the time. But he and I became pretty good friends at the time. And he was always making funny little quips and jokes about me and my comics and stuff like that. And he said something about how I should try something different with the shading, because at the time I was using the dark brown colored pencil for all of the shading. It looked horrible. But yeah, I was doing it that way. And so Artemis chimed in. He said, okay, there's different ways you can do this. Instead of using dark brown for absolutely everything, how about if you just use a darker color of whatever portion of the color that you're shading in? And so I tried that, and it worked like a charm. And to this day, that's how I color, and that's why it takes me so long. But
it's no problem. I mean, you got to leave a genius to his work. It seems like everybody kind of ran into Toby at one point or another. I know Chugga Conroy has his stories about it.
What the tragedy is about that is that like Toby, we had so many fun little banters on the site and everything. And there was this one time when I hadn't been on the site for a while, and then I kind of poked my head in for a little bit, and I saw that Radiation had made this post about people that you miss. I'm just kind of looking through it, and I click on it, and right there in the opening post, he talks about how much he missed me because I hadn't been on the site for a long time. And
oh, that's sweet.
And it was just this big heartwarming thing, and people were coming in and saying how much they missed me too. And I'm like, Oh gosh, best moment ever.
Is that where you felt your sense of community at that time?
I think that's when it really, really kicked in. But you know what the big tragedy about that is? It ends sadly. But you know, when Undertale came out, you know, Toby was now a public figure. I guess he must have thought, you know, I gotta clean up a lot of my old posts because there was a lot of bullying and stuff. I don't think he was really a mean-spirited person ever. But oh, can you still hear me?
Yeah, I'm still here. I'm just listening.
Oh, okay. Okay. I was afraid I turned off part of the
No, it's fine. You know, he's a young guy at the time, and so, you know, when you're young, you make stupid decisions. I mean, that's kind of, I know that's common sense, but
when Undertale came out, I guess he must have figured, well, I better get rid of those old posts. And so the big tragedy of that is that this was a thread that I would go back to every time that I needed a pick me up. You know, it was a really nice, heartwarming thread to see all these people talking about how much,
and then it's gone.
I had affected them, you know, because he was the opening post in that thread. The entire thread was gone.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really, really sad moment for me. But
was this like around like the time Mother 3 was coming out, or?
Let's see. I think pretty sure it was early 2009 because Mother 3. I'm pretty sure Mother 3 was already out, and that was late 2008.
Do you have any other like particular experiences on Starman.net that you recall?
I could go into some of the stuff that maybe wasn't so fun, and that usually surrounded general discussion. That subset of the forums, and I don't know what it's like nowadays. I don't really peek in nowadays, but I remember there were times on general discussion where it just turned into a huge dumpster fire.
I can imagine it like
People
fans arguing and like talking about like, you know, fan theories and stuff. Yeah, that can get like, I can see how that can get like kind of.
Well, with a general discussion, we rarely talked about Earthbound on a general discussion, and that was more, you know, just hot topics of the day and stuff like that. There were a lot of arguments and stuff going on, and it could get pretty ugly pretty quickly. And actually, in an Earthbound Zero related note, that was kind of around the time when I first discovered what the Starman.net community as a whole kind of felt about the first game in the trilogy. And this was in, I think, general discussion, but they were just slamming it right, left, and center. And I just remember this thread. I was just like, oh gosh. Because another friend of mine, she's this really cool artist. Her name's Lei Rin. That's
shout out.
Yeah, she's on Twitter. She's like, if you want to find her, it's Leirin.
I'm sure she'd appreciate that.
Yeah, she's a really cool artist, and I remember she saw this stuff going on in general discussion, you know, where everybody's just attacking Mother 1 because of the game design and all that. And so I remember she came to me asking in like a private message and asking me, can you please do something about this, or can you please come in? I want to give an argument to defend the game, but I just don't know how. And so I seem to remember I drew like this really quick MS Paint cartoon of Nintendo just kind of raising one eyebrow and just going, Nintendo does not approve.
Did that end like the whole?
No, it
didn't.
didn't.
No, it didn't. It just like gas to a fire, right?
I seem to remember the argument just went on, or I wish I were more. You know, you heard it at the beginning of this podcast that you know, I have trouble describing what it is about the game that really speaks to me, that makes it really special for me. But yeah, fortunately, with you know, the Earthbound community as a whole, not just Starman.net, they've warmed up to the game now. So that's nice to see.
Yeah, over the years, like people have kind of started appreciating the game a little bit. I've started seeing like videos about. There are some videos that like talk critically about Mother 1. A lot of fair criticisms for sure, but there's also some things that are really worth playing that game for. You know, they're like, guys, this game, the gameplay is kind of dated, but like it's got such a good story and everything, and you know, there's something about it. There have been a lot of people that have stated like similar opinions to that, and people who are like to play in battles just to, you know, take the load off of a long day or something like that.
Put it on auto mode.
Yeah, exactly.
It's lonely, but at the same time, it's comforting, and you can't really put your finger on it.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is kind of, I mean, especially for like the first couple of hours when you're only playing as Nintendo, it's like where are the other party members at? You know, especially when you go into the cave and you go to Magican, that's where that's when it gets to that fish out of water moment, you know, where it's like where the heck am I?
That's when you sit up in your seat.
Right, yeah. And I think that's where that loneliness is especially prominent. It's in that particular area. But anyway.
Cave to Magic Ant.
Yeah. Okay, so we got yeah?
Sorry, I realized I started to say something quite a while back, and then we got off on a different subject. But yeah, basically, going back to the kind of problems you can run into with just winging it as you go along. That's one thing that one problem I remember running into in those first few pages of the prologue of the comic is, it's the George and Maria, the scene where George and Maria are abducted. And I remember, so either on page 2 or page 3, as they're running out of the house, George spot the axe or the hatchet that he was going to use to go chop up some firewood, and he just grabs it because he knows that there's danger, and he takes Maria and they run off into the wood.
Right.
And so, and as like the next couple of pages went on, I realized, okay, so they're running from the aliens inside the woods, and I want it to feel like they're in real danger. But now I've got it so that George has this axe in his hand. I needed to make it so that he loses the axe. And I was just winging it, so I just made it so that he trips and he drops the axe. Had I had my wits about me, I would have written it better. But as it was, he just kind of drops the axe. I would have had it so that the axe, when he drops it, it kind of goes flying and gets embedded in a tree, and gets so embedded in the tree that neither George and Maria try to get it out, but can't really. But as it was, I made the really dumb decision of I wasn't really thinking, and I just had it so that he drops the axe several feet away, and Maria goes to go grab it, and she's right on top of the axe. She's reaching for it, and George says to her, "Maria, if we can outrun them, we won't need it." And so they run without the axe, but Maria's right on top of the axe. She can
I could. It's like you're gonna kind of need that axe for later, but I get where you're coming from there.
Yeah, well, with like even with pantsing, Stephen King is a pantser.
You mean he goes out in Publix and he pants people, like pulls down their pants?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, that's kind of the
Sorry,
impression.
I didn't realize how that was coming out.
No, it sounded quite amusing. But yeah, I can totally see him like, I'm gonna get you. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
He sits down to write, and the story comes to him as he's writing. And I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to know where the story's gonna end. If you're somebody who writes that way, if you're somebody who just sits down to write and lets the story come to you as you're writing it, both methods are legitimate. It's just figuring out who you are as a writer and what your strengths are and playing to those strengths.
Makes sense to me. In any case, we got some more questions for you, Kenisu. Mother to Earth asks, great documentary, by the way. It's really good.
Yeah.
Mother to Earth asks, what's your favorite piece of obscure Mother media and why?
Obscure? Well, I can't really call the game obscure anymore.
Yeah, true. I mean, the game's already obscure enough, so you...
And the soundtrack, people know about the soundtrack if they know about the game.
Oh yeah, like you mean like the OST, like the
Catherine Warwick.
Yeah.
Would it be tooting my own horn if I talked about how I got to illustrate the liner notes from the American release for the vinyl?
Oh wait, what? What did you do?
When shipped ashore, when they officially released the vinyl record of the Mother soundtrack in the U.S. They were able to license it from Sony, I think, and so they talked about it on their they put up a Kickstarter to get it going, and they posted in starmed.net about it, and that's when I first heard about it. And so I asked them, can I contribute artwork to this in any way, please? I love these games, or I love the songs on that soundtrack. I just fell in love with it, just as much as I fell in love with the game. I showed them a little bit, some examples of my art. Can I contribute to this in any way with artwork? And I said yeah, and it eventually came that got the idea, okay, we're gonna put out some liner notes that for Kickstarter supporters.
I think I actually learned about that from Biozilla. I think he made a post about that in his Discord server, and he showed me a picture of like your artwork on the cover, and I'm like, what? My mind was blown. So
they decided to come out with this thing of liner notes, where they got this guy, a video game journalist, to do a write-up, just kind of splashed throughout the liner notes is my artwork, and I did a piece of artwork for every track on the soundtrack. And like I said, I hope this doesn't come across like I'm tooting my own horn or anything, but that's what I would say my favorite piece of obscure Mother media is this thing that I got to take part of. It wasn't, I don't know if you would call it official Mother media, they're fans like we are, so it was a much more down to earth thing. It wasn't like a, you see, they had this company, Ship to Shore, and they put out video game soundtracks on vinyl. But yeah, basically, those liner notes were only for the Kickstarter supporters, so not very many people got to see it. But I was very, very glad to be able to take part in it.
Kenisu, that is amazing. Well, congratulations.
Oh yeah, and the artwork, if you do want to see it, it's up on my DeviantArt, and
you have an interesting like look to your artwork, and I mean, I said this in the iceberg video too. You have a keen eye for minute details.
I think that's some of where I have stuff in common with Don Rosa, because you know, going back to the Duck comics, you know, Don Rosa is known for putting like almost too much detail into each panel. I get going with something, and if it's something that I enjoy and it's something I just take off with it.
And you know, going back to you know, how we were talking about, like, you know, wake up in a cold sweat and you got these like really good ideas and stuff. When I'm stuck in that situation, I'm just like, even if it's like a little comic or like a storyboard or something, I'll draw it out as quick as I can just to get the idea across of like what I'm trying to do, and then I'll tell myself, oh yeah, I'm gonna flesh it out later. And then that time doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's what I understand. Like people who write material like novels or something, or like even comedies, they'll keep like a notebook next to their bed so that if they wake up with an idea in their head, they can jot it down really quick and then go back to sleep or whatever.
Yeah, to go out with the rest of their day. But yeah, I wear like a fanny pack all the time, like when I go out, because I hate putting things in my pockets. You know, especially when you got like skinny jeans or something. You know, it's just like such a struggle to get your phone out of your pocket, especially when you're like sitting down at a restaurant. So I just wear a fanny pack outside, and I always keep a little little black book in there, a little notepad, and then I whip it out whenever I'm like, that's a funny little encounter or something.
We do have a lot in common, because I used to go around, I'd never be seen without my backpack. So,
all right, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, and I keep sketches and stuff and notes of things in there. I have this notebook, not just in the notebook, but just little bits of notes of just everything that I want to put in that Mother fan comic, because I know it sounds silly for me to say if you know how long it's been since I updated that thing, but I'm not giving up on that thing until I'm dead. I've got notes upon notes of stuff that I want to put in that comic. And
you did kind of stop at like the Podunk arc and like in like the middle. Do you know like when you're going to start working on that? Like maybe within like, you know, 2024 is just around the corner. So, you know, is that something you're thinking about putting some time into, like continuing that Mother comic?
Well, yeah, that's the whole thing about it, is that I need to just really just sit down and try and juggle it with everything else, because I've already got some other projects that are very time sensitive. There's a guy I know in real life who I'm kind of collaborating with. He's writing a children's storybook and I'm illustrating it for him. I want to hurry and get that done, combined with my job at the grocery store that's been delaying that's made the Mother Encyclopedia. So that's why it's taking so long, and because I just don't know how to juggle things. And then I want to get again to the encyclopedia, because I promised to finish it, and I want to finish it, and then I finally want to get to my fan comic and actually finish it.
Right. Yeah, you definitely got a lot of projects on your plate. I wish you the best luck, Kenisu, honestly. Cool. We got a comment from Reid Young. Got a little compliment. He didn't ask anything, but he said, Kenisu is a legend, pumping out art since the early days of the community. Always happy to see his name.
Yeah, that makes me all warm and fuzzy inside.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the kind of the feeling I got from people that you misthread that Toby made. I was just, it's a really nice feeling. Thanks, Reid. That's really nice to hear.
Yeah, thanks, Reid. Have you ever collaborated with Mr. Young at anything? You know, because I know you were involved in like a lot of Mother projects. Is there like any Mother projects that we're not familiar with?
I can't think of anything where I've directly collaborated with Reid on anything.
Are there any other comics or any other like little projects that, you know, like I know you did like translations for like the first couple chapters of the novel, you know, like any other like Mother projects or non-Mother projects that you're working on that you would like to share?
Well, like I said, I'm working on that storybook, so it's got my so it's my art in that storybook, but I don't know. I don't want to share too much from it right now. But,
yeah, you don't have to. No.
And another thing that I've been doing is there's a novel that I've kind of been working. It's a children's chapter book that I've been working on since 2017, but it's going to be a short one. It's just that I don't know how to. This is my first real foray into writing an actual book, and it's going to have illustrations and I've done a number of illustrations for it already, but basically it's about these two kids. At least it starts off with this one 10-year-old boy. His name's Rudy.
Okay.
And having trouble in school. He's having trouble sleeping, and to make matters worse, he's got this constellation that he can kind of see out of the skylight when he's lying in bed. It's kind of his favorite constellation, just his own little thing. And now he's got all these things going wrong for him, and then all of a sudden some of the stars from the constellation disappear, and he's like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going on here, and it's just getting worse. And I don't know. I want to do something about this. I mean, but it's out in space. I can't do anything about it, And he sees a shooting star one night, and it's the very first shooting star he's ever seen, and he kind of accidentally makes a wish on a shooting star that he wishes that he had somebody with him. It does late at night. He's the only one awake, and he wishes that he had somebody with him to talk with or something like that. And then the next night, he sees another shooting star, but this time stuff happens, and he ends up meeting this girl who looks to be about his age. She's actually millions of years old, but she evolved from a single star constellation. I know that's kind of an oxymoron, but the idea is that she evolved from a constellation, and she tells him that there's this and she rides on top of this comet. Okay, it's kind of like her steed. So it's kind of like with Dragon Ball and the Kintoan cloud.
Oh yeah, I could see that. I could totally see that.
But she rides on this comet, and she needs Rudy's help to go out into the far reaches of the universe and get rid of this thing that's eating up stars and everything and all that. And
interesting.
Once I finish this book, anybody familiar with things like, say, Never-Ending Story might be able
I'm getting those kind of vibes. I am.
We might be able to see the connections and see a lot of the influence, but it's going to be called Comet Rider.
Well, I think that's an intriguing intriguing plot line. You got to save the universe from losing all its stars and stuff. I don't think I've ever heard of a plot like that, but yeah, that's you're a really creative guy, Kenisu. I wouldn't be surprised if that became like the next live action movie, or
I like drawing or making stuff that feels like it's just your thing, like for the reader or for whoever's consuming it. It feels like something that speaks to you and you alone.
Oh, like your experience.
So there's it's kind of like the Mother trilogy. So
it kind of is like that.
And I'm wondering if it should be a children's book, because it goes into some really dark territory later on. But at the same time, I grew up on Don Bluth movies and
of course
stuff, and
right,
Nightmare Fuel and all that. Now that I've talked about it in this sphere, I should probably make a Twitter post about it or something like that.
Well, I mean, if you want, I mean, like it sounds like
some of the artwork, but
it sounds like an intriguing project. Have you ever made did you make any artwork for it, or?
Yeah, I've got a handful of bits and pieces of art that I've done for it. I've got this one that, if I do make a post, I know which piece of art I'm going to use.
I'm not saying this should be like a suggestion or anything, but what if like he accidentally wished for like a room full of bananas or something, just like a little comedic moment, and he wakes up, he's like, oh man, so I don't know, just throwing my thoughts around.
Hopefully he likes bananas.
Yeah, I hope he likes that potassium. He might need it if he's going to like save the solar system from losing all its stars or whatnot. Comet chasing.
Yeah, you need rations.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a big journey. Oh yeah. Speaking of journey, I've noticed that you also I'm getting the impression that these are like earlier works, but you made some comics for The Hobbit.
Oh yeah, this is way earlier work. This is like the comic for The Hobbit. That was I did that in 2003.
I can tell it's a little earlier based on your progression as an artist.
Like I was saying earlier with Breaking the Mold, I look back and I can't really read this stuff because I would have to change that, and I don't know what I was thinking, making in each page 5 tiers. Like that's overkill.
Right.
Like cramming so much stuff into one page.
Like even some of the current stuff I do, I don't like. Sometimes I'll look back at like stuff I made like yesterday, and I'm like, oh, why did I say that? You know. But again, you know, like I said, it's, you know, you got to make those sacrifices if you're going to, you know, put yourself out there, you know, and be a creative guy, I guess. But we got another plethora of questions here. So Lotus the Umbra. Really? What?
I said, oh, really?
Oh, okay. I thought you said, oh no. It's like, no. You're like looking up at this boulder that's coming down the mountain of questions, like, and you're like running. It's like, oh no, not again, or something like that. I don't know.
No, well,
but
fire away.
All right, gotcha. Guns a-blazing. Here we go. Okay, Lotus the Umbra says, what appeals Mother 1 most to you in comparison with the rest of the trilogy?
I kind of feel like I went over that with trying to explain all the different, you know, trying and failing to properly explain, to articulate what it is about the game that really gets to me. And the fact that the other 2 games were made on newer technology, the Famicom. So
I think so.
It doesn't quite have that thing about it that the Famicom, like you were mentioning earlier with I think it was a Biozilla question where he was asking what are some of your favorite parts in Mother 1, and another one that I like that I don't think gets very much attention, the part with the little islet with the scientists on it.
Oh yeah, and then
take the rocket ship from the roof of that building and over there, and I find that part so fascinating because on top of everything else, for one of the scientists actually, when you give them strawberry tofu, they actually mention Eve. Okay, how on earth do they know about Eve?
Oh yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where and in my comic I've come up with, or in my notes for my comic I've come up with an explanation.
Growing up, you know, I read through a lot of your comics on the website, and I was like, I remember particularly reading through the George and Maria comic that you did, and I was like, is this real? Like, is this like official or anything? Because this feels almost official, you know? Yeah. I was under the impression for a long time that this was like eToy approved or anything, you know? So like, yeah, and so
I don't know what to say other than thank you.
Yeah, no, it felt very convincing, and you know, you just have a way of writing that is you know, like especially in like when Nintendo is talking to his mom and like how they talk about like their ancestry and stuff and like all that. It's just like I don't remember this being in the game, you know, like.
Going back to Island with the scientists on it, you know, that part with the rocket ship, it's very much like it's that NES feel, I think, because it really brings me back to my days as a child, back to my childhood when I was playing Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers on the NES. And when you get pretty far into that game, and you know, this is a game that didn't have save states or anything like that, you couldn't save your game.
Oh, how horrible!
So if you stop the game. Yeah, if you stopped the game, you had to start it all over from the beginning, or got a game over or anything like that.
Oh man!
The further you got in the game, the more your heart would race, and when you get to the end of the map in that game in Rescue Rangers, you think you're in the final level, but then all of a sudden you see this rocket ship on screen, and you blast up into kind of outer space for a little bit, and then you go back down, and there's another map with 3 more stages on it. And just seeing that rocket ship, kind of that backdrop of that 8-bit sea behind it, ocean, it kind of reminds me a bit with the scientists on that island with the rocket ship that you take to get to the island, with the sea behind it and everything. It reminds me of that experience playing Rescue Rangers and getting that far in the game, and with your heart racing, and it made this really big impression on me as a kid.
I could see that being like exciting when you're a kid and stuff, but like that same situation has happened with me. I was playing I played through Luigi's Mansion 2 like a couple years ago or something, and I remember like I was playing through the set of mansions, and then all of a sudden, you know, I thought the game was over at that point. Like I was like, okay, this game, I've been playing this game for like, you know, and so like the game should be over by now. And then all of a sudden it shows like these 5 more mansions you got to explore. And I'm like, okay, I just got to stop playing this. So in some cases it can be exciting, but like in that particular case, it was just like dread. It's fun, don't get me wrong, but it's not like so fun to the point where it's just like, I want more, you know? That just kind of brought up that story in my head. Is that like the only scene, you know, with the strawberry tofu? Is that like your most favorite scene? Do you have any other scenes that you're particularly fond of?
Well, obviously, I like the Giga battle.
Oh yes,
the final battle. I know how I would want to present that in my comic too, and you run over this stuff for years and years and years, and you know, going back to film scores, I listen to the stuff on my iPod, and some of the cues, some of the music cues, they actually inspire me on how to present a scene or how things should happen in a scene, all the different beats in that scene, and it's wonderful stuff. And I've got kind of this musical landscape in my head for the final battle, and nobody's going to be able to hear it because it would be a comic.
Yeah, true. But, unless you made it like an animated comic, like a little, or like a comic dub or something like that. Like I know there are some people that do that.
Yeah, something like that.
People should make a comic dub of your stuff, Kenisu.
I've had people ask me for permission to do stuff like that with my Mother comics, and 2 or 3 people say that, and I don't think they followed through with it. But
that's a shame. Well, maybe somebody else with a YouTube channel can do that one of these days. I don't know. Anyway, we got 5 questions from this individual, Epoch5ZZ. His first question is, what is your favorite kind of sandwich?
I'm kind of torn between grilled cheese and corned beef.
Yeah, I love grilled cheese. I haven't had it in a while because like sometimes the grease on cheese is like bothersome to me, you know, especially, you know,
really? Yeah.
I had long hair not that long ago, like down to my shoulders. And it was especially bad. Like, you know, when I would eat cheese, like I could feel the grease in my hair and it was bad. I hated it. It was miserable. Man, I love grilled cheese though. I can't deny that. Yeah, thanks, Kenisu. Second question. What is a Skip Sandwich DX?
What?
I mean, that's my exact response. What? But
it's
yeah.
an item, another sandwich question, huh? Straight answer is that it's an item that you can eat in Earthbound that makes you go faster, and they put that mechanic in there probably because of the whole new mechanic of trying to be able to avoid the enemies that wander around the world.
So there you go. I hope you're happy, Epoch. you couldn't just look at a game guide, huh? You had to ask Kenisu for everything. But, you know, that was one of the gripes I had with Earthbound, and I guess a lot of people had this gripe with Earthbound too as well. But it was like the only Mother game that didn't have like a run button in any of its like official releases. It wasn't particularly bothersome to me, you know, when I played it as a child, but then, you know, I started playing other games that had like a faster pace, you know, and then I go back to play Earthbound, and I'm like, this game's going by so slow.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can see why, you know, they put that skip sandwich in there. So yeah, you can like dodge enemies, and instead of just putting in a run button where you can like dodge enemies all the time.
I expect that's why they put that item in there, because it helps with the mechanic.
Question 3. Why do some people consider tacos to be a type of sandwich? Another sandwich question. A lot of talk about food here.
Because it's something that goes between 2 halves of a shell of some kind. I don't know.
Epoch should just ask you like why is the sky blue and why the universe was made, because Kenizu's gonna know that. Anyway, I have never met anybody that considered a taco a type of sandwich. That's almost like there was a piece of dialogue in it doesn't spoil the story or anything, but there's like this little joke in the Nyasu translation for Mother 1 in chapter 2 where the Earthbound enemies start coming out, like the hippie and whatnot and the bag lady, and then Lloyd looks at Ken and he's like, what did you do? What did you say that made these people so angry? Did you just say that, you know, did you say anything about eating like pizza with a fork or anything like that? You know, those like, you know, like typical like arguments or something. I remember
that was a spot in the novel that gave me a lot of trouble. Like, I'm just
really?
Okay, there's some where Lloyd's says, "What did you say to these people?" And then he starts saying all this stuff. It's just like, there's some cultural thing going on here that I need to research here.
Oh, really? Oh yeah, because like, you know, some of that might not be culturally significant to like the West. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, I seem to remember they were talking about Japanese food in the.
Oh, so they literally just did like a jelly donut thing, like from Pokemon, where it's just like Brock has like a rice ball, and he's like, I love jelly donuts.
Yeah, it's understandable here because you know, using all this stuff that I guess doesn't go together, is that the point that they're trying to get across, like
right.
food that doesn't go together.
Yeah, it's a necessary change because like
I can see what was going on there. But.
Yeah. Okay, so these last two questions aren't sandwich related, so that's cool. Also sad. Is there anything in the Mother encyclopedias that mention why Mr. T was chosen to be in Mother 2 and 3?
What?
I can rephrase it if you like.
Do you pity the foo?
I don't know if it was like a commercial or something, but Mr. T was singing about like, there is no other like Mother, so treat her right.
Oh yeah.
Maybe that's why. You know, maybe Itoi saw that. He's like, I want this guy in my game. He's secretly promoting my game, you know? It's just like...
I guess the straight answer is the encyclopedia came out 5 years before Mother 2 came out, and Mr. T's not in Mother 1, so I wish I had something goofier to say, but...
Right. At least according to like the limited sprites that we do have, you know, in Mother 1. Do any of the sprites have names? Like any of the citizen sprites in Mother 1, I wonder? Because I do know there's like there's like an old lady with a cane, and then there's like a guy in blue, you know, who's wearing like a blue hat. He's got a mustache. I always wondered if they had names, so I just kind of came up with names for them while I was playing through them.
Just the NPCs. I kind of do that too. Now you mean just the NPCs and not actual characters like the mayor or...
Yeah, exactly.
I swear there is, but it's escaping me.
Like, you know, the guy that you in Podunk, where you kind of like, you talk to him and he's like, "You're not a zombie, are you?" And you're like, "Yes." And he's like, and he runs away. Yeah. You know, that guy. I named him after a friend of mine who's like a conspiracy theorist. And he was like particularly paranoid about a zombie invasion. He had a particular fascination about zombies. I think you would like Earthbound a lot because you fight zombies a lot in those games.
There is no cure for zombies.
Unfortunately not. Maybe, I don't know, like super healing from Mother 1 could probably heal zombieism. I don't know. If only that was established.
I've got my own headcanons, and I don't know what...
Like every fan does. Every fan of something has their own, like, you know, thoughts of like how things should be and whatnot. And, you know, like I said earlier, I knew some people who were kind of upset over like small details in Mother Encore. I just kind of come to like accept that, you know, with remakes, you know, stuff changes. And have you played Mother Encore?
I have not yet, actually.
What? Oh boy.
I know, it's crazy.
I don't know. Yeah, you might like it, Kenisu.
I probably would. It kind of ties in with the DuckTales reboot in my mind.
Right. Oh, yeah,
this remake of something that I hold very, very precious, and so I'm kind of scared of it.
Right. Yeah, and I can sympathize with that. You know, definitely. As a veteran Mother player myself, I like, I don't know if I told you this. I told this to Mr. Banadega, but I was like I love Mother 1, and I love playing the game sometimes, but there are just times where I just can't like tolerate it because it's a little dated. And, you know, I've been playing over the years, I've been getting into more games than just the Mother series. And, you know, it's kind of, you know, it makes the Mother games in comparison kind of look like slower in progression and stuff. You know, at times I'll like go back and play through them, you know, just to re-experience that magic, the fun and charm of the game. You know, going through the battles, like the battles, especially after a while, can be like pretty tiresome. It can be like a little repetitive and stuff. Like even with like Earthbound, it kind of has that problem. But like, I still love the games, and you know, like here I am talking to you and talking about the Mother series a lot on my channel, and you know, so obviously I love the game in one capacity or another. It's just it's upsetting to me because I just can't play that game like I used to. Like every couple of years I'll find myself playing it. How often do you find yourself playing that game?
I think the last time I played it was before all these projects really piled up on top of me, but I was playing it on the Nintendo Switch Online, and I had a very specific reason to play through it. I'm crazy, in case that's not obvious, but you know those scripts that the official scripts that came out in books that
Yeah, that
Hobonichi
Hobonichi released. Yeah, I think they
Yeah,
released it in like a collection, right?
yeah, it was a collection of all three game scripts.
Okay.
Well, I was reading through that and the one for Mother One, and I found that there's this line of dialogue that I don't know if it shows up in Earthbound Zero or not, but there's a line of dialogue for when you cap off all the money in the ATM. The money's like it's some ridiculous amount, like 16 million something.
Oh.
So you can see why I say I'm crazy. So I'm just like, I wonder if that made it into Earthbound Zero. And since I don't know anything about hacking, and I've looked through all the text dumps that I can find, and I can't find anything about a line of text that occurs when you cap off in the ATM money. But so I started playing through Earthbound Zero, or Earthbound Beginnings, I should say, on Switch Online. I was just playing through just this endless loop of this area mounted toy, with Eve in my party and everything. I'm just doing that, going back and forth. I was anyway. I haven't done that in a while. I kind of sort of gave up on it, but I want to see if this line of dialogue is in the English version, and leave it to me to do it the hard way. It's just this one tiny little line of dialogue from the ATM.
Man, well.
But yeah, I got to about, I think, 2 million, and then products started piling up on me, and I decided to just I'm probably not going to finish this.
It's a busy life. I can only imagine like your current situation, with all the stuff that you're doing. I'm sure it's amazing. I bet it's all gonna knock some people's socks off sooner or later.
If I can ever finish any of it.
Oh man, the amount of times I said that to myself. I hope I finish this someday. Okay, I think we stopped off at like why Mr. T wasn't in Mother One. So I think there's an obvious reason for that, and it's like the limitations and whatnot.
Yeah, Mr. T is too cool to control in the NES limitations.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool though if Mr. T. I know there's like Earthbound
if you were a playable character.
Right. I was about to say, Kenisu, the Earthbound randomizer or whatever, like it randomizes sprites and stuff. That's one of my favorite things about Mother One. It increases like replay value. It makes me want to go back and play it again because like it'll change the sprites around. It'll move enemies into different locations. Like you'll find like a Wally in like, I don't know, right outside of Union Station or something.
Does this mean that Nintendo starts spouting off, I am grateful to your family?
I don't know if it's that random. It would be cool if it was that random, but you'll find like the sprites of Geek probably like in Podunk or something. What the randomizer does, to my knowledge, it swaps around all the sprites and stuff, and like, for instance, it'll turn Nintendo into some random sprite in the game, like a citizen or something, and it's cool because you can make your own you can make your own party. Essentially, it's like Final Fantasy in that way, like the first game. You can make like
really cool.
your own characters. Essentially, it's cool because there are a lot of people I know who like make their own mother characters and whatnot, and so it's like this is a good opportunity to find some like creative influence, and not only to like mess around in Mother in a different way, but also like make up characters and stuff and whatnot, and like sometimes you'll even find like weird situations happening. And I remember when I was playing through the first part of Mother One in the randomizer, I found this sprite that was naked like running around the town, and I'm like, this is a good time. We got a streakers in Mother now. Man, that would be a weird Earthbound enemy,
boy.
Streakers. Oh man.
The unassuming local guy.
Oh boy. But yeah, like it's a lot of like Kenisu, if you haven't tried it yet, I encourage it. Like it's still Mother, it's still Earthbound Zero, it's just different sprites, and you can make your own little whatever out of it. And like since you can already name your characters and stuff in the game, you can just make your own little story.
It sounds really fun.
Yeah, you can make your own main 4 and stuff. But anyway, last question from oops, I accidentally deleted his name off my notes, but it was Epoch5ZZ. Okay, I think that was it. Epoch5CZ's last question is there a random tidbit, factoid, piece of knowledge you've never been asked about but always wanted an excuse to talk about?
Like I'm sure there's something, but it's just not coming to my mind right now, right this moment. We've talked about a lot of the things that fascinate me in ways that I don't really see other people talking about, like the whole scientists knowing about Eve. And I'm sorry I don't have a better answer, but I'm sure I'll think of it when I'm lying in bed tonight. And
it's like, what's that one nagging question I didn't get? I like how, you go through the game and when you see the scientist and he knows about Eve, do you think that like maybe he might have worked for George at one point or another? Because it's interesting because George was in your comics, spoiler alert, by the way, if you want to read the comic, but George was banished to Mountie Toy. And so he's all alone and he's like, no one's there. So like, how do you think they would have like met?
I know what I want to do with my comic, or with this little tidbit in my comic. I don't know how much I want to give away, actually. It's just the short answer is no, George and the scientist have never met. But without going into detail, I will say that the scientist did see Eve. I've always had this idea in my head for kind of this, not really side story that I want to do for the comic. It doesn't completely fit into the main plot, but I want to go into this side story special comic that tackles the history of George and Maria, and
like more in depth.
Yeah, like how they met, how they fell in love.
George is distant, from society and everything, and he has this like giant robot that also can't really be shown off to society because it's a giant robot. It's gonna freak people out. So they're both in a sense. It's interesting. It's like a bonding moment almost. I mean, the book totally gives a completely different reason for why Eve exists. It's an interesting take, I'll say, but I don't know. I think your take is more in line with the actual lore.
Yeah, when I was translating the novel in my first draft and I got to that part and I just, whoa, that's against what happens in the game, but that's really cool. I like that. Like what we find out about Lloyd's father. And
I think I finished the book. I don't remember. It was a while back. You've been on Starman.net for a while, and a lot of people say, that Starman.net is like kind of past its prime. Would you agree with that?
Sadly, it's definitely not like it was back in like 2008, 2009. I'll poke my head in every now and again. I just barely joined the Discord, so I don't know what it's like on the Discord. So I'm wondering if most people have moved over to the Discord.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at the Discord sometimes too, and there's a lot of conversation going on. And even then, Starman.net, like the forums, like they're still like active and stuff. Some people still use them. It's just that like I think there are some links.
It's not as lively as
right.
Not as many people.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like a Newgrounds situation. Same thing happened with that site. Even then, like I still upload my art to it, and like people still make animations and stuff and upload it like exclusively there instead of like YouTube, which is admirable because that's the passion of like people just love the site and the community in that site.
Oh yeah.
But like the thing about Starman.net, I would always visit that site when I was little. I was particularly fascinated by the information and the leaks and the clay models. And one thing that I do kind of go back to every now and again is the Mother 3 sound effects. There's a link that supposed to have like all the sound effects from Mother 3, and it's been pending since 2006. I don't know how long, but that thing's been pending for a while. And so there's like little things that haven't been completely updated, but that doesn't mean it's like there's still some stuff that get uploaded to it every once in a while. Like Whamageddon, I think it was an event that was was it Whamageddon? Hold on, it was like a current event going on.
Like that.
Yeah, here it is, Whamageddon, and it's like fairly recent, and so like there's stuff still going on here. It's just, and also like of course the Mother She Wrote podcast is on here too. Have you listened to that, by the way?
I've listened to the first few episodes.
I want to respect your time and stuff, and honestly I'm just grateful to have you here for the few hours I had, and
this has been really great. I've loved this.
I'm so glad to have you. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like it's been such an honor because like again I've seen your comics growing up as a child, and I never thought ever in my life that I would be talking to that man today, the guy behind all those comics, and so I just surprised myself. I will say it's been a little while. We've been talking for a bit. My throat's getting a little dry, so I will ask one final question. Kenisu, to any aspiring artist, musician, creative, whatever they may be, do you have any advice or anything you'd like to say before we end this episode?
Well, it's gonna sound corny, but just do not give up on your dreams.
Believe in second chances.
Believe in second chances.
I'm on the corny train with you.
Yeah. Yeah, that is the best answer I can give you, is that as a creative person, I've noticed that I'm always happier when I'm creating things, when I'm drawing, and especially when I'm done with it, because, you know, it can get to be some real drudgery. A lot of people who've never really done this kind of stuff before, they don't really maybe romanticize it a bit, say, well, being creative is always enjoying what you're doing. And you're like, well, it can get rough sometimes. It can get to the point where I'm never going to be done with this thing. Just push through it. Easier said than done, I know. I've been there. We talked about how I've been there. I guess be true to your creative juices.
There you have it, everybody.
It's the corny stuff that everybody says, but I gotta agree with it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, because like I feel like for the better half of like a few years I've been running on fumes. Like I've been just going through some major burnout, you know. And this might be the last thing I release for this year. I make for this year is this just uploading this episode, you know, because like you know, I have so many projects and stuff, and I'm a little overwhelmed by the magnitude. You know, I apologize if I, you know, talk about myself a little too much. I'm trying to, you know, I know it's it can be a little annoying to the, you know, I don't want people to get the wrong idea.
I enjoy hearing about you. So.
Oh, you know, likewise, of course. You know, that's I've always wanted to meet you. So, you know, I'm so glad that I can officially say that now. Well, thank you for joining this episode, and also don't forget, everybody, Christmas is right around the corner. I'll try to make sure that this episode gets out before Christmas, but I have no guarantee. I'm gonna try my best to either get it out before Christmas or at least before the new year. In any case, you know, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, you know, whatever you celebrate around this time of year.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on. This has been a blast.
I'm glad you think so. I hope that I wasn't too boring or anything, or, you know, dragging on.
Oh,
but
you weren't.
Yeah, it always feels great to, you know, talk about these things with fellow creatives, especially like I live in a very isolated part of the country, so like, you know, I never really grew up with anybody who knew about the Mother series. Getting to share that passion with others is it's been revitalizing. See you later, everybody.